This story starts with the male lead saying, "I've fallen in love with Grace. I'm sorry, but I'd like you to break off our engagement as soon as possible, Selonia." Selonia Bessin, the only daughter of Duke Bessin and Ian Cherville's fiancé, stood in shock. She asked, "Excuse me," Ian continued. "I feel bad about saying this now, just as you've woken up, but I'd like to marry Grace as soon as I can." Selonia thought, what did I just hear? Break off our engagement? All of a sudden? And who's Grace? What happened while I was asleep for the past few months? It's already been 9 months since she woke up in this novel and started living as Selonia. And now, the male lead of this novel and her fiancé, Ian Cherville, wants to break off their engagement. Surviving the Demon Lord. It's an ordinary romantic fantasy novel she was reborn into. As the title predicts, it's a novel about defeating the most powerful villain of the story, the Demon Lord. The story goes as follows. The person she was reborn as, Selonia Bessin, is the novel's heroine and one of the few healers in the Empire. The hero of this novel is her fiancé, Ian Cherville. Meant to have a marriage of convenience at first, the two shared little affection for each other. Around the time their relationship was starting to dwindle and their dates were becoming boring, the Demon Lord suddenly resurrected. Following the appearance of the frightful Demon Lord, the Empire assembled a team of elite warriors to subjugate him. Ian Cherville, the captain of the Moonlight Order, together with Selonia, wholeheartedly accepted the Empire's request in the name of peace. They were joined by the supporting male lead and Holy Knight, Leif Hetchel, as well as another supporting male lead, Mac Ryan, who inherited the blood of the dragon. Both Leif and Mac Ryan loved Selonia, but Ian and Selonia realized their true love for each other during their expedition. While Leif and Mac Ryan had no choice but to look on as their beloved chose another man, they still devoted themselves to helping Selonia and genuinely wished for her happiness. And so, the four friends worked together to defeat the Demon Lord. The male and female lead got married, sealing their love with the oath of marriage. At least, that's how the story should have ended. Until the subjugation of the Demon Lord, the story followed the same path as the original novel. But Selonia became bedridden for some unknown reason on their way home. When she finally woke up 3 months later, the first thing she heard from her fiancé's mouth. "He wants me to break off the engagement," Ian sighed. "You won't be disappointed with your compensation. If you understand, I'd like to get this over with right away." Suddenly Selonia felt a throb and recalled him saying, "It's alright. I just wish for you to suffer less. I'd rather be sick myself than see you sick." When Selonia joined the dangerous expedition right after her rebirth, she relied on Ian a lot to endure it. He may not have been her real fiancé, but she had no idea that their engagement would end like this. Ian continued, "I don't remember you being such a pathetic person. How much longer are you going to drag this out for?" Hearing that, she thought, he had a look on his face I'd never seen before. It was as if he had had enough of me. I must really mean nothing to him anymore. She spoke. "Fine. Let's break off the engagement," she thought in her mind. It wasn't my position to begin with, but if the first thing he asks his fiancée, who just woke up, is to break off their engagement, I'm not interested either, she said. "In return, I'd like to decide the compensation, so wait until I inform you," she concluded. "Nevertheless, I won't let this slide. He betrayed me, so I'm going to take away the thing he cherishes most," Ian sarcastically said. "Ha! I had no idea you were so greedy," she countered. "What a pity." Ian agreed. "Fine. Should I write you a pledge?" She thinks in her mind. He sounds so annoyed. He really has no respect for me whatsoever, huh? And to think that I trusted a man like this. He's made the moments I trusted him, as we risked our lives together, completely meaningless. No, this is who he really is. Maybe it's good that I found out as soon as possible. Thanks to that, a bastard like him won't be able to affect my life at all. Ian signed a piece of paper and throws it towards Selonia. "Here. My pledge. Happy now?" Looking at the paper, she thought, "Happy? The time I spent with you has culminated into a single scrap of paper. Yet you expect me to be happy?" Then he turned and said, "Since we're done here, I'll get going." She stopped him. "Wait, one more thing," he asked, turning. "What now?" She thought to herself. "I can't just let him go like this," she said, smiling. "Can you come closer? This is our last moment together." She extends her hand towards him. He replied, "Ha, fine, I guess I can shake your hand one last." As he reached towards her hand, she clenches her fists and strikes him across his face. He staggered and shouted, What in the world do you think you're doing?" she replied. What am I doing? Did you really expect me to be so sophisticated as to shake your hand? You're right, I'm pathetic. But if you've done something you deserve to get hit for, I have the right to do so, don't I? Please don't tell me you'll get back at me for this. You're not that small-minded of a man, are you? She replied, goodbye. I won't see you off. As he left, slamming the door, she said aloud, bastard. I thought he'd be my first real family. Before she woke up in this novel, she lived a lonely life without any parents or friends to rely on. She died an early death after becoming sick. With no body to return to anyway, she wanted to continue to live as Selonia. Here in this world, she had a family, friends, and even a man who loved her. After all, she thought to herself, well, that lover is long gone now. But still, how many people get to live as the female lead and a duke's daughter in a novel? Forget about what happened in the past. I don't need a lover. I still have my dear friends beside me. My precious friends with whom I shared my life as we hung between life and death at the front lines. Regardless of them being the supporting male leads, they're my dear friends whom I wouldn't give up for anything. Well, that's what she thought until a few days ago. Leif told her about his withdrawal. She gasped while drinking tea. He asked, Are you all right, my lady? Wiping her face, she asked. But Leif, what did you just say? He averted his gaze, saying, I'm sorry to say this, but I'd like to withdraw the knight's pledge I made to you, he added. I have a new lady I'd like to protect for the rest of my life. Selonia got a hunch. This can't be. He continued, I'm going to make an eternal pledge to Miss Grace Benet. Hearing that, she thought, Leif Hetchel. Even my friend has changed his mind? She wondered. And who on earth is this Grace? She remembered Ian saying, I'd like you to break off our engagement as soon as possible. And Leif saying, I'm going to make an eternal pledge to Miss Grace Benet. Selonia touches her face, thinking, Am I dreaming? She pinched her cheek. Leif flinched. Ah, Lady Selonia. She thinks to herself, first, Ian wants me to break off our engagement, and now Leif, who promised to protect me for the rest of his life, has withdrawn his pledge. That hurts. Only after pinching my cheek so hard that I teared up did I realize that none of this was a dream. He nervously asked, Are you all right? She thinks in her mind, if someone asked me if I loved Ian Cherville, I would say no. Regardless of the fact that he was a gentle and affectionate hero, the real Selonia and I were different people. On the flip side, because I wasn't really her, it was easier to accept that the story was moving along a different path and my dear companions had left me. However, she said aloud, the time we spent together wasn't fake. Leif asked, Pardon? What did you just say? She replied, Oh, nothing. She continued, thinking, It's true that I'm sad the same thing happened to me twice, but there's no need to be mad about Leif withdrawing his knight's pledge. Still, I should tell him the truth as his friend, right? She began. Leif, I'd like to support you, but Grace Benet will soon be engaged to Ian, she thought to herself. I'm sure it must be a shock to him. When he pledged his love to me, he didn't get anything in return either. He has lost to Ian once again, so he must be heartbroken, he said. I know. Selonia gets baffled. Why, you're aware? He replied. Yes. But I can't stop being fond of her. I'm fine with just admiring her from afar. She recalled the scene where Leif confessed to her earlier. Being able to protect Lady Selonia is all I ask for, Leif told. Being able to protect Miss Grace is all I ask for. She thinks that's exactly what he said to me as well. She was about to say but stopped, thinking. It's not like I feel betrayed or hurt. Who he loves is his choice. And unlike Ian, Leif isn't cheating on me. He simply had a change of mind. But Leif is the first friend I made after I came here. Him telling me this means that our friendship is as good as over, and that we won't be seeing each other anymore. So I can't help but be disappointed. Then he said, Forgive me, Lady Selonia, she replied. It's alright, Leif. It's your heart, so you can do what you want. No need to be sorry. She realized, however, something is strange. First Ian, and now even Leif. How did they both end up falling in love with the same person? Could it really just be a coincidence? I'm sure it's no use asking Leif. She rises up from her place, saying, Leif, thank you for everything, for how you cared for me, and the time we spent together. She went close to him, extending her hand, and said, I wish you happiness. Leif began. Lady Selonia, but stopped in the middle. After a moment he stands up and clasped her hand, saying, I wish you good health. Selonia beamed. You too, Leif. Then he bowed. Goodbye, my lady. and started walking away. After he left, Selonia thought, so this is the end of me and Leif. She plopped to her chair in despair and said, what exactly happened to me while I was out cold? From the minute I arrived here to the moment we defeated the demon lord and headed back home, everything happened as per the original novel. The point at which the story suddenly changed was when I suddenly collapsed during our journey back. I was on the verge of death for 3 months, unaware of what happened. And during that time, the male leads all fell in love with another woman and turned their backs on me. Suddenly she remembered, wait, come to think of it, there's still one male lead left. Someone came calling. Sally! Sally! Are you here? He came close and said, oh, I found you. Mac Ryan, descendant of the dragon. She asked, why now of all times? She thinks, could it be, he said, about the heart that I gave you before? I'd like it back. I have someone else I'd like to give it to. Selonia jolted hearing that. She said inwardly, you once told me that heart would protect me forever, didn't you? And now you want it back as if I was just holding onto it for you temporarily? I felt even more horrible, because I just knew who he was going to give the dragon's heart to instead. She said, this person you want to give it to, I suspect it's Grace Benet. Mac Ryan gets startled. Huh? How did you know? Have you been digging up information on me? Hearing that, she chuckled at first, and then burst out laughing. Ah ha 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 ha. She thinks the male leads have fallen in love with someone whose name didn't even appear once in the original novel. Grace Benet. Extra and extra. A few months ago, during the expedition, Selonia tripped at the edge of a cliff. While she was falling, she thought, and no, this can't be happening. Am I going to die like this? In such a ridiculous way? Then Mac Ryan also jumped after her, shouting, Sally! Sally! Stay still! I'll come and save you! He transformed into a dragon and saved Selonia. After catching her, he flew and dropped at a steady place. Then Selonia took a breath of relief and said, I thought I was going to die. Mac Ryan, thank you for save. Then after transforming again, Mac Ryan quickly grabs her and shouted, Sally! Are you out of your mind? Why did you climb up that steep cliff? It's dangerous there. You could have died, she replied hesitatingly. Well, Silkia grows there, so, the Silkia flower. It's a flower that's considered extremely precious by adventurers due to its effectiveness in treating illnesses. In the original novel, there were never any issues obtaining this flower. So why did the cliff I stepped on that time come crumbling down? He sighed. I'm sorry for getting so upset. I just freaked out when I saw you falling. Human life is so weak and can be crushed so easily. It's fleetingly short and delicate. She interrupted him. Mac, sorry but he cut her off. Sally, since you're a weak human instead of a transcendent being like myself, you'll need this. He puts his hand on his chest, and a light glows from the place of his heart. It was a glowing heart. While showing it, he said, it is said to hold the power to protect whoever possesses it. There's only one of this in the world, a dragon's heart. Seeing that, she felt touched. Mac, but if you give me this, what happens to you? He replied. I'll only be able to use 1/10 of my powers, but it's fine, as long as it means I can be with you a bit longer. He handed her the heart. Then she said, Mac, I'm content with that. Back to the present, Mac Ryan demanded. What are you waiting for? Give me back the heart that I gave you. She sighed, thinking, and now, even Mac Ryan? He asked. But how did you know about Grace? Are you sure you were bedridden for 3 months? She glared at him. Is that all you have to say to me after I just woke up? He shrugged it off. Oh, sorry. Do you feel alright now? She felt annoyed for a moment, then she said, follow me. I'll give you back your heart. After getting inside, he asked, Sally, you really are better now, right? Sorry, I was a bit inconsiderate before, she replied. It's fine, Mac. I understand. Shall we continue where we left off? Then she called out. Ella. The maid came and replied, Yes, my lady. Selonia ordered her. Bring me my jewelry box from the safe in my room. After the maid left to get it, Selonia said, You'll get it back soon, so sit down and wait, he replied. All right. Then he glanced at her, saying, Aren't you going to ask me why? She replied. What other reason is there than the fact that you've changed your mind? She clasped her hands, thinking, actually, I want to ask him, but I'm scared of finding out the truth. That everything these men did was only for the original plot to unfold. I'm starting to doubt that I actually experienced everything that happened in the past 6 months. Then he said, So you've been storing my heart in a safe all this time? She replied. Of course. I wouldn't want to lose it. It's precious to me, he repeated. Precious. He felt slightly nervous. Sally, the thing is, He was interrupted by the knock on the door. Selonia said, "Come in." The maid came with a box. Selonia said inwardly, "The heart of Mac Ryan, the Empire's last dragon. Just as the legend says, I've never gotten hurt since receiving this heart. I'm sure there was another reason why I fell unconscious for 3 months." She then stands up holding the box and said, "Mac, thank you for always protecting me," she said to herself. "Thanks to him, I was able to survive until now," she added. "Have a safe trip back. I won't be seeing you off." After receiving the box, he replied, "Sure." After he left, Selonia plopped to sofa and sighed. Seeing that, the maid said, "You must be devastated, my lady." Selonia then said, "You know," maid replied. "Why, yes?" she asked. "How would you feel if someone snatched up and ate the dish you cooked with ingredients you put your life on the line for?" Maid replied. I'd feel really upset," Selonia said. "You would, right? I'm not just disappointed. I'm furious." She flared up, thinking, "The moment I arrived in this world, I was forced to join the expedition, so the only people I had were my companions. After going through a living hell, I thought I'd finally live a decent life. But all my efforts went up in smoke." She then called out, "Ella," the maid replied. "Yes?" she instructed. "Ask the finest guild to gather information on Grace Benet. Have them find out if she's been displaying any unusual behavior lately, or if the way she speaks or acts has changed. Make sure nothing is left out." She then said to herself, "Whether this is all merely a coincidence or not, I'm going to find out." The next day, Ella asked while brushing her hair, "My lady, how are you feeling now?" Selonia asked. Why?" she replied. "You still look rather listless." Selonia agreed. "Yeah," she said to herself, "actually, when I dozed off for a second a moment ago, I had a dream about our expedition to subjugate the demon lord. The heavy rain made it difficult to travel through the mountains that day. Following the others, I lost my balance on the muddy path and fell down. And when I did, all 3 of them rushed to reach out their hands to me." Leif said, "My lady, please take my hand. The path is rough," Mac Ryan said. "Sally, should I take you on my back?" Ian offered. "This way, my lady." She recalled, "Of course." I took the hand of my fiancé, Ian, and we walked together, hand in hand. Behind me, I could feel Leif and Mac Ryan withdraw their hands in disappointment, but I thought it was better not to create any room for misunderstanding since I couldn't reciprocate their feelings, and so I didn't look back. "But of course, these are all faded memories now," she replied to Ella. "I'm fine. I just had a dream about the old days, that's all. Anyway, how is father?" Ella said. "His Grace? Why, of course." She remembered her father saying, "Oh, my beloved Selonia, why did she skip dinner? Prepare a delicious meal for her right away. He's been very upset, making a lot of these remarks." Selonia said, "Oh, dear father." Duke Galloway Bessin, after losing his beloved wife, devoted himself wholeheartedly to raising his daughter. He was a father who genuinely loved and cared for his family. When the female lead woke up as Selonia, it was already decided that she would join the expedition, but her father still strongly opposed it. Of course, he ended up giving in to his daughter, like most parents do, but as a result, his daughter returned home in an unconscious state. Selonia remembered, based on what Ella told me, all the renowned physicians, healers, and priests across the country had come to see me. But when his daughter still failed to wake up, Duke Bessin fell into deep despair. Then, when I finally woke up after months of slumber, I was able to experience the love of a father. Something I had never felt before in my old life. She said to herself, "He makes a fuss every time I skip a meal." Even just a little while ago, Ella tried to wake Selonia, saying, "My lady, hurry up and wake up, because you skipped dinner last night. His Grace is saying that he will also not eat." She replied quickly, "What? I'll be down right away." Ella thought to herself, "I swear, he's a sucker when it comes to his daughter." Selonia smiled, thinking, "That's why. It's completely understandable that he reacted the way he did when he heard about Ian." When her father learned of the news that Ian wanted to break off the engagement, he immediately barged into Duke Cherville's manor, holding a sword in his hand. It was only after everyone stopped him that he managed to calm down. Originally, the engagement was a pact. Selonia's grandfather, the late Duke, had made it with House Cherville. It was the union of House Bessin, the golden house known to own more wealth than the imperial family, and House Cherville, a prestigious family that held sway over the political world. It was a powerful marriage that even the emperor couldn't help but be wary of. Of course, it all went up in smoke. After that, Ella said, "All done, my lady," Selonia said. "Thank you, Ella." Selonia was as exquisitely beautiful as, if not more than, her mother, who had earned great praise in high society for her appearance. Looking at her face, she thought, "My looks are certainly befitting of a novel's female lead. Thanks to the magic potion Father gave me every day, I hardly lost any muscle despite having been bedridden for months." She then stood up and said, "Come on, Ella. Father must be waiting." At the dining table, her father said, "Selonia, I heard that you requested the Finesse Guild for information on that woman," she replied. "Yes, father," he asked. "By any chance, do you still have feelings left for that bastard? If so, I'll go talk to Duke Chervy." She cut him off. "No, father. It's not that, so please don't misunderstand." She thinks in her mind, "I knew the guild would get in touch with father." Finesse, the biggest information guild in the Flanagan Empire, is one of the businesses run by House Bessin. Information equals power and money. Following House Bessin's creed, the guild had been established by the first head of the family, and it still supports House Bessin today, she said inwardly. Until not too long ago, I didn't really feel the need for an information guild, but now that I require unfabricated information, the guild has become quite helpful. But of course, father ended up finding out. Her father drops his fork saying, "Sally, if you're still fond of him but are worried about our family's reputation," she again interrupted him. "No, father, there's just something I really need to check." He flinched. "Something you need to check?" she began. "Leif and Mac Ryan visited today, you see, and by some weird coincidence, the two of them also seem to have fallen for Miss Grace. The timing is so strange that it's almost as if they planned it. That's why I'm curious to find out the cause of all this." She thinks in her mind, "My dear friend's change of heart is no longer something I can just overlook. If their feelings for me were simply for the development of the original story, then what about me? I treated them with sincerity. If Grace is suspicious, it means they changed because of something she did. And if she isn't, they simply had a change of mind. Perhaps I just want to confirm that none of this is because of me," she said. "Don't worry, father. Whatever it may be, I will find out the truth," she concluded. "Right. There must be a reason. I must have overlooked something." Meanwhile, Ian went to meet Grace. He said, "I'm glad I quickly finished my work. Now I can go on a lovely date with you a day early. Do you like the scenery? What do you think, Grace?" he asked her. "Grace, is there any place you'd like to go?" she replied. "I'd like to go to that dessert cafe that the other ladies recommended," he asked. "All right, what's it called?" she smiled, saying. "Roblink." Ian hesitated, thinking, of all the dessert cafes, she wants to go to Selonia's favorite shop. She called. "Yo, Grace?" he replied. "Grace, that place is far out, and it's not even that famous. How about Bredgel? It just opened, and I hear the interior looks beautiful." She snugged him, saying, "I really want to go to Roblink." Ian's heart raced as she hugged him. He caressed her, saying, "Gee, Grace, Roblink's a bit far out, so let's go somewhere closer by today." Then she coldly asked, "Yo, Grace, have you been there with Lady Selonia already? Is that why you don't wish to go with me? Because you're afraid you'll be reminded of your old memories with Lady Selonia?" He tried to deny. "Grace, that's not why." She freed her hand as Ian tried to grab it. "It's fine. I see there's still no room for me between you two." Saying that, she started walking. Ian tried to stop her. "Wait, Grace, that's a misunderstanding. I'm simply worried that you'll be tired. If you'd like, we can go to Roblink right now." Hearing that, Grace stopped. Ian added, "I don't care about Selonia at all." Tears welled up at her eyes. She asked, "Do you mean that?" He replied, "Of course. You're the only one for me. That woman has nothing to do with me anymore." Then she said, "I trust that you're telling the truth," he said. "I give you my word." She smiled, saying, "All right then. Let's go to Roblink." So her ordered the servant, "Prepare the carriage right away." Hearing that, Grace smirked to herself. Later, a newspaper boy was shouting, "Extra! Extra! Read all about it! The latest news on the Warriors! Extra! Extra! Read all about it!" He was selling newspaper in the capital. Some passerby buys it and reads, "Look at this. Lady Selonia Bessin has confined herself to her room after getting her heart broken." Meanwhile, Selonia was also reading the same news. She said, "Ha! I can't believe this. How could they publish such crap? I confined myself to my room? For the first time in 9 months since I woke up in this world, I'm finally enjoying the splendid life of a noblewoman. I couldn't be any happier. While drinking tea in the garden, she said aloud, "This is the best. It's exhilarating. So this is what lavish life in the city is like, huh?" The expedition entailed many realistic struggles that weren't described in the novel. Sleeping on the muddy ground made my whole body ache. I had to take showers with freezing cold water, and most of my meals consisted of stale bread. I don't ever want to experience that kind of life again. I know my situation isn't good, but it's the first time I'm experiencing the actual life of a duke's daughter, so why would I confine myself? Get out of here. I'm going to live the high life from now on. Suddenly Ella came and asked, "What did you just say, my lady?" Selonia asked. "Are you back, Ella?" Ella told. "I also heard some unexpected news." "Ah, my lady. I heard His Majesty will be holding a congratulatory banquet." The victory ceremony after defeating the Demon Lord. The Emperor hosted a victory ceremony for the saviors. Ian, Mac Ryan, and Leif all attended, but Selonia couldn't since she was bedridden. Selonia thought, he must be hosting a banquet for me, since I wasn't able to attend the victory ceremony. Ella replied, "Of course. You deserve it, after all." On that note, did you see what the newspapers are babbling on about? They wrote nonsense as if it were the truth. Are they asking to get smacked? She complained. How could they write such articles without even checking the facts? She fumed. I think they're even more out of control because you keep quiet. You should just sue them, Selonia asked. Should I? Looking at her frustrated on her behold, she thinks she's so cute. While she was staying inside the manor, using her recuperation as an excuse, Ella gathered information about the outside world on her behalf. Currently, the hottest topic in high society is no doubt the saviors who defeated the Demon Lord. And among them, most of the attention is on Selonia and Ian's broken engagement. Selonia thought, I guess it's the same in any world where people like to gossip about others. She said, By the way, Ella, what about the thing I asked you to do this morning? Ella replied, I sent the letter you wanted me to send, but the recipient. She filled in. That's right. It's Ian Cherville. It's about time I get my compensation. She thinks in her mind, he'll probably have a fit when he sees my letter. After all, I did request something very valuable to him. Nothing would be better to receive from that bastard as compensation than that. Suddenly another maid came and said, My lady, the deputy chief of the Finesse Guild is here. Selonia asked, What? Already? It hasn't even been a day. She thinks, was it father's influence? He's quick to gather information. She instructed, send him in. At their meeting, Jillian informed, Lady Selonia, I brought the information you requested. It includes everything you asked for. Her personal information, the names of those surrounding her, and even her family history. Looking at the information, she said, Thank you, Jillian. Looking at him, she thought, Jillian? He became the deputy chief of the Finesse Guild at the young age of 24. Knowing how competent he is, the information he brings will surely be reliable. She looks at the envelope. So this envelope contains all I want to know about Grace Benet, huh? Let's see. After taking a look at the information, her heart sank. She asked, bewildered, Is this information true? He replied, Yes, it is. She was flabbergasted. A single piece of paper. Was this all that could be found on Grace? She turned to Jillian. Jillian, I think there may have been a misunderstanding. What I requested was everything you could find on Miss Gra. He cut her off. As you can see, that's everything. She thinks in her mind, even if I couldn't uncover the full truth about everything that happened, I thought I'd at least be able to find something on Grace. But this? I could find this kind of information without the guild's help. At this rate, Jillian spoke. The only thing that stood out was that she often interacted with the three men for about 3 months following the victory ceremony. However, that was only because they asked to see her first. Hearing that, she thought, right, I already read about that. The 4 of them first met at the victory ceremony without any prior connections. Coincidentally, they started talking to each other, and by the last day of the banquet, people said the 3 men never left her side. It meant they gradually fell in love with her during the week-long event. Jillian slides another paper saying, This is the guest list for the victory ceremony. She stared at the list, the Emperor and Empress, the Crown Prince, high-ranking officials, my father. Nothing stood out. She wondered, then was Grace not the cause of all this? Did they really just happen to have a change of heart? She gets confused. I don't know anymore why I even started this. What should I do now? Suddenly Ella cautiously approached. My lady, she suggested. How about you leave the manor this afternoon to get your mind off things? Dazed, she nodded. Sure. Seeing her, Ella thought, poor Lady Selonia, she's completely spaced out. Selonia's mind was racing. Was it because I didn't find out anything? I'm not feeling any better. While I didn't expect to uncover everything at once, I had hoped to at least find some sort of clue. Suddenly Ella interjected. How about we go downtown? You like cake, don't you, my lady? We should go to Roblink and get some nice desserts. It's been ages. Hearing that name, Selonia's ears flinched. She said, nice desserts? Ella replied. Yes. She straightened up, right. I don't have time to wallow in frustration like this, she said. Let's go, Ella, she complied. I'll get ready, my lady. A few hours later, after reaching the bakery, Selonia thought, my timing couldn't have been worse. She saw Leif there standing. She called out, Leif? Seeing her, he flinched. Looking at him, she thought, what twist of fate led me to bump into the person I guaranteed I'd never meet again in just a matter of days? Well, I still can't ignore him, she asked. What are you doing here? He hesitated, flustered. Oh, I. Looking at him, she thought, why is he making that face? It's as if he's seen someone he shouldn't see here. He asked, Are you here to buy some cake? She replied, confused. Yes. What about you, Leif? He began. She thought to herself. I was sure Leif wasn't completely comfortable seeing me either. But something was strange. Leif was a gentleman. He would never act like this in front of someone, he said, blocking her way. Lady Selonia. Well, the thing is, I don't think you should go inside. You see, today's desserts are all sold out, so… Selonia interrupted him. I see, you're still bad at lying. He averted his gaze so she noticed. He had a habit of avoiding her gaze whenever he lied. Seeing that, she thought, so that habit hadn't changed, huh? She then remembered him saying, being able to protect Miss Grace is all I ask for. He hesitatingly called, Lady Selonia. Selonia said, Miss Grace must be inside. Hearing that, he flinched. Well, Selonia concluded, so that was the answer. Grace is inside the shop. It hadn't even been that long since we wished each other the best. Smiling, she wondered, had I already become this much of an uncomfortable presence to him in that short amount of time? My lady, Ella whispered. Should I take out some cakes? She replied. No, I'm going to eat inside. Selonia then turned and said, Well, have a nice day, Leif. He again tried to stop her. Lady Selonia! But she didn't stop. While walking, she thought to herself, why do I have to avoid Grace? If she and I can't be in the same place, I shouldn't be the one having to move out of the way. Grace was the one with whom my fiancé cheated on me. Moreover, I wanted to see what this woman, whose name I'd heard countless times, actually looked like in the flesh. While standing in front of the door, she gets anxious. But why was I so nervous? She reached out to open the door, but someone suddenly opened from inside. It was Grace. She said, Oh my, I didn't expect to bump into you here. A smooth and shameless voice greeted her. What a pleasure it is to see you, Lady Selonia. I've always wanted to meet you. Looking at her, Selonia thought, so it's her. She's more shameless than I expected. The male lead's new woman, Grace Benet. A few months ago, during the expedition, Ian was fighting the monsters in a dungeon. Selonia rushed towards him and asked, Ian, are you alright? You're not hurt, are you? He replied. I'm fine, but what about you? She smiled. I'm alright, since you protected me. He looked at her, concern flickering in his eyes. You look a bit feeble. When we return, let's go to Roblin together, he suggested, forcing a small smile. We'll order a whole table of your favorite desserts, and reminisce about today, she agreed. Alright, let's do that. Back to present, Grace said with a sly smile. You must have come for some dessert as well, Lady Selonia. Seeing that, Selonia thought, why is she acting as if she knows me? Does she want to make it a point that she's seeing my ex-fiancé? She's even more brazen than I thought. Who are you? She asked coolly. It looks like you know who I am, so wouldn't it be proper manners to first introduce yourself to me? With a slight bow, Grace responded. Excuse my late introduction. I'm Grace Benet, daughter of Baron Benet. Forgive me if I was rude. I must have mistaken that I knew you because you're one of the saviors who defeated the demon lord. Hearing that, Selonia thinks in her mind, savior, huh? Right. That's what it also said in the original novel. The four saviors will be forever together based on their trust and affection for each other. She grinned, thinking, although now, I'm just by myself. She then spoke. I didn't become a savior just so that anybody could pretend they know me. Hearing that, Grace flinched and Leif quickly guarded her, calling, "Lady Selonia!" Leif's sharp voice interrupted. "I must say, that was rather rude of you. Miss Grace may have been discourteous, but there was no reason for her to hear that." Looking at his response, Selonia thinks in her mind, so Leif also knows how to make this kind of face. It's surprising that his attitude can change this much. She took a step back, but before she could say anything, a new voice cut in. "Grace, is something wrong? Why are you still?" It was Ian. Looking at him, Grace responded, "Ah, Your Grace." Selonia thinks in her mind, "As I thought." The two of them came together. How dare he go as far as to bring her to Roblink? He knows better than anyone that this is my favorite dessert shop, so how could he? He called out, "Selonia, Your Grace." Grace clung to his arm, her eyes wide and teary. "What do you think you're doing, Lady Selonia?" Ian bellowed. Bewildered, Selonia responded, "Pardon? I didn't do anything." "There's no need to defend her, Grace," Ian said firmly. "It doesn't matter what happened. I asked you not to be rude to my fiancé." This came as a sudden shock to her. Selonia thinks in her mind, why was I trying so hard to find the reason, when our relationship was clearly already over? How foolish of me to linger over a past I can't return to. I've been wondering how the story may have changed and what could have affected our relationship, but I see. I was the only one who has been holding on to such thoughts. Ian added, "I hope we don't ever see each other again. That would be the best for both of us." To which Selonia responded, "You're the one who should be conducting yourself properly." Ian gets shocked. "Excuse me?" She thought, determined to not back away. Whatever the reason, they're the ones who changed. "I didn't do anything wrong," she questioned. "How dare you go around like this?" Ian again gasped in shock. "Lady Selonia," she continued, "I've always known she was the brazen type. But you could at least pretend to feel shame when there are so many eyes watching. Are you proudly showing everyone the woman with whom you cheated on me?" Ian gets flushed, so Grace whispered to her, "We should leave, Your Grace." Then Ian stormed away saying, "Ha, I've been deceived all along. It was all just pretend." As they were leaving, a dragon flew above them. He was Mac Ryan. Looking at him, Selonia thinks, Mac Ryan. He must have been waiting for Grace nearby. "I'll just get some desserts to go." Before she could leave, Grace spoke again, her voice sickly sweet. "By the way, Lady Selonia," she said, her tone dripping with amusement, "His Grace and I will be getting engaged soon." Hearing that, Selonia thinks, "Ha, so she wants to brag, huh? And why are you telling me this?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Selonia gets shocked by the sudden remark. "What?" But Grace quickly clasped Ian's arm and said, "Your Grace, let's go together." Grace clasped his arm tightly, and he gently held her hand in return. Ian replied, "Grace, let's hurry back." "Good idea," Leif agreed. "She must be exhausted from traveling," Mac Ryan added. "Should I take you home on my back? That would be faster." Looking at them, Sally thinks in her mind, Grace has become their new heroine. I'll accept that our relationship wasn't as significant as I thought, and that everything has changed. "Thank you," she murmured, closing her eyes, "for helping me let go of our past." Later, Leif was holding a paper. His thoughts were interrupted by Mac Ryan. "You made your choice knowing what you were getting into." Leif turned to face him. Mac Ryan, "Yes, I did. Even though the situation changed, things are still the same for us." News of Ian and Miss Grace spread quickly. Duke Ian Cherville announces engagement to Miss Grace Benet. I knew the two were in love, yet I still chose to stay by her side. He wondered aloud, "It was my decision, so why do I feel so empty?" He told Grace Benet, "When I first met her at the victory ceremony, I was captured by her innocence. I thought things could change this time around, that I wouldn't have to remain beside her as just a friend, like with Lady Selonia. But this time was no different. Instead of me, Ian stood by her side, and all I could do was watch the two from afar. It was the same as with Lady Selonia." He sighed, "But that doesn't mean I can stop liking her. Before I even knew it, I was completely captivated by her. I got used to the fact that she would never reciprocate my feelings, and all I can do is be content with staying in her presence." "Are you regretting it now?" a voice broke through his thoughts. "After withdrawing your knight's pledge in the blink of an eye? If you were going to regret it, why did you even bother changing your mind?" Leif asked coldly. "But you also asked her to return your heart. If you were going to take it away like that, why did you give it to her in the first place? You're being true to your heart, right?" he continued. "Well, I am too," Mac Ryan responded. I simply did the best I could to save Sally back then. If I hadn't, she would have died, Leif argued. Then you should have stayed by her side until the end. I had no idea you'd take back your heart. Are you saying you don't care if she gets hurt anymore? That's nonsense, Mac Ryan shouted. As he was speaking, a sudden thump in his mind stopped him. A ominous feeling stopped him from speaking further. He wondered, thinking about Selonia. What is this feeling I have? It's as if… Mac Ryan! A voice called out. He turned his head. It was Grace. She said, "Come here and eat with us." As he heard her voice, all the thoughts about Selonia faded. He stood silent for a moment, then turned to her. "Grace, I'm coming." Seeing his irregular response, Leif got a hunch. Just now. Mac Ryan seemed confused for a moment. I wonder why. He also started feeling nauseous a little. But again Grace's voice removed all the uncertainty in his mind. She said, "Sir Leif, you too." He also forgot everything and gets drawn to her beautiful voice and lovely smile. He said to himself, "Right. Grace Benet is the one I truly love." Meanwhile, Sally was thinking, the original novel is over. Whether it was a happy or a sad ending. In the novel, a month after subjugating the Demon Lord, Selonia and Ian get married, and the story ends there. But we're already past that point. She crumpled the piece of paper she was writing on and thinks, that means there's no predetermined story to unfold any further. In other words, I'm the writer of my own story now. She tossed the paper around. Then Ella said, "My lady, would you like another piece of cake?" She replied, "Of course. Order some more." Suddenly she heard the whispering of other noble ladies. "My gosh, Lady Selonia's over there. How did the daughter of a baron take her spot?" Another whispered. "What in the world did she do to get rid of the heir of that golden family?" Listening to them, Sally thinks, here we go. But Ella frowned. "How dare they talk behind your back?" Sally tried to stop. Ella, calm down." Scratching her cheek, she thinks, "I really don't mind." Just as she had told me, Grace and Ian's engagement was soon announced, and as a result, I naturally became the center of everyone's attention. But I've already found closure. It wasn't easy to rid myself of any lingering feelings, but I didn't want to waste this precious new life I was given by getting carried away with my emotions. She said, smiling, "I'm busy enough enjoying all this tasty food." Then Ella asked, "By the way, when are you returning to the treatment center?" She drooped at the question. I'd forgotten about that, but now you just reminded me. Ella asked, "Pardon?" In the novel, Selonia worked at a treatment center as one of the Empire's top healers. She said, "I still have 6 months of vacation left, so I'm going to use it all before I return to work. Now all that's left is to take things easy and enjoy my life," Ella remarked. "That sounds great, my lady. You can use that time to do everything you want," Sally replied. "Yes, I'm going to do everything I've been wanting to do. After all, I won't have anything to worry about." Meanwhile, in a distant forest, a mysterious figure was walking. Some days ago, few maids were talking to each other. One said, "Doesn't Lady Selonia seem like a different person these days? You feel it too? It's like she's been reborn. She never loses her temper or gets cranky anymore." Other added, "Recently, she even smiled and said hello to me." Another asked, "Whoa, so why do you think she suddenly changed? If you think about it, she's been different ever since she joined the expedition," one suggested. "How about this? Defeating the Demon Lord is something that requires you to risk your life, and after the expedition, she was even unconscious for 3 months. They say a person changes when they've had a taste of death," one replied. "True, she was bedridden for a long time, after all," First agreed. "Yes, that's possible." Sally was listening to their conversation. She thinks in her mind, "I was cranky and often lost my temper, huh?" It sounds like they're talking about the old Selonia. But was she really like that in the original novel? This conversation is definitely worth remembering. Back to present, Sally invited the noble ladies that were whispering about her. She invited them to her table. A lady responded, "Lady Selonia, thank you so much for allowing us to sit with you. It's great to hear that you feel better now. You look more and more beautiful as the days pass." At first the atmosphere was tense. Observing them, Sally thinks in her mind, "Look at their faces. They must find me really uncomfortable." I was just talking to Ella and happened to notice there were no more empty tables, so I told them to sit here. Based on the conversation I overheard a few days ago and the looks on these ladies' faces, I can tell the old Selonia must have had quite a difficult personality. But I'm living her life now, so I might as well work on improving my reputation, she finally began. Don't mention it. I should rather thank you, ladies, for keeping me company. As you know, I've been away from high society for a long time, so there aren't any fellow ladies who socialize with me. Hearing that, the noble ladies glanced at each other and nodded. One of them began. Haha, no, the honor is all ours, another added. Ahaha, thanks to you, I'll be able to enjoy the cake I've been craving, the third also chipped in. Me too. Their coincidental meeting turned into a long conversation, and right around the time Selonia learned just how much influence these ladies had, so they started talking about Ian. Lady Abel began. I'm not sure if I should say this, but, Lady Pelaine asked. What is it? Lady Roanna said. Please go ahead, Lady Abel said. Perhaps it's inappropriate of me to say this, but I heard about Duke Cherville and Miss Grace's engagement today. I'm just worried that you might be too devastated, Celie responded. Oh dear, I'm fine, Lady Abel continued. I'm glad to hear that, but I'm still surprised someone would dare to do such a thing. How could she flirt with a man who's already engaged? Other ladies also added. It seems Baron Benet's family has no dignity. It's a disgrace for us nobles, Celie then remarked. Both the man who cheated and the woman he cheated with are to blame. Hearing that, the ladies flinched. Lady Pelaine said. Yes, his grace went too far. He tainted the great Cherville family name by having an affair, Lady Roanna agreed. Exactly. Lady Selonia wasn't just any fiancé. Moreover, she was unconscious at the time. Listening to them, Celie thought, I have to say, it feels pretty good hearing all this. While there were a few newspapers that spoke positively of Ian and Grace's relationship, most condemned his behavior. However, due to Ian's influential position in high society, everyone stayed quiet. Of course, that was only because I, the victim, hadn't spoken up yet. He'd be wrong if he thought I'd keep quiet after being humiliated, Celie responded. Who knows? Perhaps it's the severity of the situation that allowed me to get over him this quickly, a lady expressed. Ugh, just thinking about it makes me so mad, right? Suddenly a jingle of bell interrupted their conversation. As the whispers arose around them, Lady Abel wondered aloud. What's all the commotion about? Lady Roanna sked. Who could it be? Looking at the person in tattered clothes, Lady Pelaine said. My gosh! Wait, that's... All of them froze silent, unable to respond. Celie gulped. What's going on? Who are they talking about? A person in black with a chilling aura walks past them. Lady Abel said, of all people, what's he doing here? Celie asked. Who is he? She replied, the beast of the night. Celie looked at him. The beast of the night. She had a hunch, Why does he look so familiar? I definitely met him somewhere. She thinks in her mind, that's strange. This is a romance novel, so all important characters have looks that stand out, and the main characters are all drop-dead gorgeous. So, for a character I'm seeing for the first time to look so attractive, and he's called the Beast of the Night? Normally, extras don't receive such nicknames. I have to admit, it does suit his appearance. He doesn't look like the type to like sweet things. But maybe he's not what I think he is. That person talked to a servant, and the servant handed him an ominous-looking bag. Looking at them bag, Celie thinks, that looks really fishy. Celie spoke. Ladies, I hope that man isn't doing anything to harm the owner. Lady Abel denied. Oh no. That's food, my lady, she asked. Food? Lady Abel replied. Yes, I heard he receives food from this place and distributes it to those in need, Lady Pelaine said. Really? What a wonderful thing to do. I didn't expect that at all. I always found him a bit scary. So Celie concluded. So he's famous because he's a good person? But what's this nervous premonition I keep sensing? I strangely feel as though I shouldn't send that man away. As the person was walking away, his robe flutters and Celie saw a scar on his chest. She gets startled. Wait, that scar on his chest. It's not an ordinary scar. Aside from the demon lord, this world has always been a peaceful place. So how could he have suffered such a dangerous wound? She wondered. That man. Who is he? On her back and carriage she told about the scar to Ella. She said thoughtfully, a scar? On the Beast of the Night's body? I don't remember seeing one. She added, among the rumors about him, some say he goes around fighting criminals and dangerous beasts. Perhaps that's where it's from, Celie concluded, but it didn't look like that kind of scar. Is that really all there is to it? Ella continued. Anyway, how was today? I think you met some really nice ladies. I hope you feel better now. Hearing that, Celie said, going out for the first time in a while certainly lifted my spirits. While they were on their guard in the beginning, before I knew it, we had become close and started gossiping. I even promised to invite them to the Bessin Manor for our next tea time. Ella responded. We'll have to decorate the garden and make it look pretty, in time for when your friends visit, my lady, she replied. The garden looks just fine as is. It does feel like I'm starting over from scratch. But this kind of life doesn't seem so bad either. During their way back, Ella asked, My lady, I've always been curious. What does the Demon Lord look like? Sally reminded of the Demon Lord. Ella continued, There are rumors flying around about his appearance, but I heard only the saviors know what he really looks like. He must look like the leader of, no, like a monster, right? Sally was surprised by the question. She remembered, the Demon Lord's appearance? Well, he possesses black scales covering his body, and stands at a towering height of at least 3 meters. Moreover, with his half-human, half-beast appearance, he gazes at you with eerie red eyes, she said. He was scary, Ella said. I knew it. Actually, at the dessert cafe today, I heard people saying the Demon Lord was extremely good-looking. They said he captivates people with his good looks. Hearing that, Sally flinched. Is it alright to let her misunderstand like this? Well, I suppose I'm the only one who's actually seen the Demon Lord's true form, so... Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden neigh of the horses. Her carriage was blocked by the monsters. As the carriage abruptly stopped, Sally asked, My goodness. Cohen, what's wrong all of a sudden? He replied from outside. Apologies, my lady. I was trying to cross the woods, but suddenly, these beasts approached. Sally thinks in her mind, oh no. Starving monsters must have smelled our tracks and followed us here. She asked, Are you alright? Can't we just pass through them? He replied. The horses won't budge. They're too scared, she resolved. But it's even more dangerous if we stay still like this. If I'd at least brought my sword, I could have handled a few myself. But this is just too many. Looking at the sheer numbers, Cohen said while trembling. I'm really sorry, my lady. I'll try to block a few in the front, so please take the carriage in. Sally refused. No, I won't be leaving you here by yourself, Cohen. If I chase away the ones blocking the front, do you think you can get the carriage moving again? He said. Yes, I think so. She gets determined and said, All right. I'll try and create a path using my healing powers. When that happens, you should start moving right away. She thinks in her mind, I can't have Ella or Cohen get hurt. I have to do something. Ella stopped her. Don't go, my lady. There are too many monsters. It's dangerous, she responded. Wait for me here, Ella. Don't move. As she stepped forward, the beasts growled at her. Looking at them, she thinks, I can shortly create a gap using my healing light. And if I give Cohen the signal right then, we can get out of this mess. She moved her hand and a white light in shape of a ball emerged. She said, Right now! Cohen, quickly move the carrier! But the remaining beasts recovered quickly. She gets startled. What? Already? Was the light not strong enough? The spell got lifted too quickly. But we have to get out of here. Suddenly a beast rushed and lunged at her. But it was stopped by the beast of the night using magic. With the sound of boom, the beast disappeared and the remaining scattered away. But Sally falls to the ground. She wasn't able to move lying on the ground. She wondered, what was that black light just now? Magic? Did someone come to save us? As the person walks close to her, she wondered, who is it? She took a glance, and it was the beast of the night. As he was walking to her, she thinks, what's he doing here? Suddenly her gaze fell on his face, and she gets reminded, that face. I remember now. I experienced déjà vu when I first saw him at the cafe, but I failed to recognize him because he was too far away. But how? She spoke lying on the ground. Why you? I swore you were dead, he asked. You know me? She said inwardly. How could I forget? He's the man I killed with my own hands. No, he's the Demon Lord. A few months ago, right after the subjugation of the Demon Lord, at the Demon Lord's castle, Leif announced, Finally, everything's over. We brought peace to this world, Ian said. Good job, everyone. I'll send a letter to the Imperial Palace notifying them of our victory, Macryan said. Then I'll send a carrier pigeon as well, Leif then said. I feel a lot better thanks to Lady Selonia's healing, so I'll scan the vicinity, just in case there are still monsters around. Sally smiled. All right. Be careful, Leif. As Leif was walking away, Sally thinks in her mind, the last battle was truly brutal. She staggers as she was walking. She said inwardly, I can't even stand properly because I used up all my energy. Will I endure the journey back? Suddenly she noticed. Huh! Where's my sword? She tried to find it but couldn't. Looking at the ominous castle, she thinks, I didn't leave it inside the castle, did I? She ended up heading back inside. While walking in the eerie hallway, she thinks, ugh, it's so creepy in here. Let me quickly find my sword and go back. I could just leave it here, but it carries too many precious memories of the expedition. While walking, she reached the place where they defeated the demon lord. His corpse was lying in there. Looking at it, she checked. He's dead, right? Chills were running down her spine. Then she saw her dagger lying on the ground. Looking at it, she thought, I knew it. It was here. Now let me get the heck out of here. As she reached to pick it up, she heard a sound. She flinched, thinking, what was that? I just sensed something. She turned her head and saw a human lying at the place of the demon lord. She gets startled. What? Isn't that where the demon lord was lying? What's a human being doing there? Wait, or is that what the demon lord really looks like? The person lying there opened his eyes. Seeing that, she freaked out. Eek, he's alive? She wondered, did he come back to life in a different form? No, this can't happen. Due to her quick resolve, she raised her dagger, thinking, I need to stab him. I must kill him. So she stabbed him, but she suddenly jolted awake, shouting HAA. She wondered, was that a dream? How much of it was just a nightmare? Suddenly Ella came and asked, my lady, how do you feel? I'm glad you woke up right away, Sally called out. Ella, what happened? She replied. Please be careful. It hasn't been that long since you were treated. You might not be hurting anymore, but you still need to take it easy, Sally asked again. What in the world happened? And what time is it? Ella replied. It's been about 2 hours since we escaped the woods. Hearing that, she thought, so what happened in the woods wasn't all a dream. Then what happened to the demon lord? Ella continued. Let me help you. You're going to greet the guests, right? Sally asked, surprised. The guests, Ella smiled. Yes. Our savior. Sally was dazed after hearing that. Her instincts screamed, don't tell me. She quickly lunges away from bed, running. Ella called from behind. My lady, where are you going? Sally's mind was racing. It can't be. There's no way. At the door to the guest room, she gulped, fearing the worst. She opened the door and saw her father heaving tea. Her father said, Selonia, you finally woke up. How are you feeling? You're just in time. Say hello to our guest, the man who saved your life. Her heart sank looking at the demon lord. She questioned herself, what is that man doing here? Why is the demon lord in my house? The person said. So we meet again, she recalled, those unforgettable crimson eyes, the distinct feeling of my dagger piercing his skin. I thought that nightmare had ended forever. Her mind was in shambles. What the heck is going on? Her father left, saying, Please serve our guest some tea, Selonia. Well, I need to run now. He's your savior, so make sure to treat him like an honorable guest, she complained in her mind. Father, please. You can't just leave like that. The person was staring at her as she doesn't spoke. He suddenly questioned. You know me, don't you? Sally replied calmly. I don't think so. This is my first time seeing you. Thank you for saving me. I'll compensate you generously, so please leave now, he asked. You said to me, I swore you were dead. Sally felt caught, damn it. So he remembers. She had a hunch, but something strange. Why does he speak as if we're meeting for the first time? Does he not recognize me? At some dark place, a mysterious person was walking cloaked in dark. He walked to a glowing sphere. He raised his hand and asked, How did it go? A person who was behind him kneeled holding a body bag. He said, I got 2 more. After he said that, there was a moment of silence. The first person thinks in his mind, This won't do. We must work faster. Just a little more. The sphere behind him glowed even brighter. It was a magic circle. The person said, TSK. At this rate, it'll take ages. We'll need to speed things up. The person kneeling replied, I await your order. Hearing that, the first person grinned. Back to the guest room. Sally was reflection on his words. You know me, don't you? Does he really not recognize me? Should I be relieved or not? She resolved, first I must kick him out of the manor before he remembers everything. I can't jeopardize the safety of father and the servants. I'll think about the next step later. She Finlay spoke. You must have mistaken me for someone else, Demon Lord replied. So, you'll keep quiet until the end, huh? She denied. No, he pressed. I lost my memory, she asked, surprised. Excuse me, he said. I have nowhere to go, and I don't know anyone, she thought in her mind. So he didn't recognize me because he lost his memory? What does that mean? he added. So I have no choice but to stay here. She was caught off guard. What in the world is he saying? She said. I appreciate the fact that you saved me, but I never said you could stay here. If you won't leave, I'll call the guards. After a moment of silence, the demon lord stands and started walking. She felt defeated. Ugh, I can't read him at all. What the heck is that man I mean? The demon lord thinking. He walks to the window and asked, Aren't you curious? She gets confused. Sorry. He raised his hand and with a finger flick a small flare lit up. He said, Just how long it will take for this fire to spread throughout the entire manor? She felt threatened. What do you think you're doing? I'm going to call the guards right off. He cut her off. The guards? Go ahead if you want to see what happens to them with your own eyes. She flinched at his provocation. She thought to herself, I have to stay calm and think. I went through so much effort to get rid of the demon lord, but I guess it's impossible to defeat him alone. If I provoke him in the wrong way and he recalls what happened, then what will happen to me then? I can't possibly reveal that he's the demon lord who threatened world peace, and I'm the savior who stabbed him. Her mind raced. I'm guessing the reason he's acting this way is because he thinks I'm the only one who remembers anything about him. She said, I'll say it again. I do not know you. Therefore, I can't give you the answer you want. She said to herself, I have no choice but to continue to pretend I don't know him. He accepted. Fine, I'll wait. I have plenty of time on my hands. He extinguished the flare. He walked and plopped to the sofa and said, And in case you haven't heard, the man who's your father has already permitted me to stay here as long as I want. Sally sighed to herself. Father, why on earth did you do that? The demon lord said. I couldn't turn down a gesture of kindness, she mumbled. Actually, you could. Hearing that, he said, It seems you don't like me being here. Well, the solution is simple. If you want me to leave, tell me how you know me. If you do, I'll be out of here right away, she denied. I don't know anything, he smiled. Fine. Tell me if you change your mind. She thinks in her mind, who knew the demon lord would be so childish? I can't get used to this. He won't budge at all. Why do irritating things like this keep happening to me? Well, it doesn't look like he'll try something right away, so I can take some time to think. If I sweet-talk him, I might just be able to get him out of here without any issues. Her thoughts were interrupted by him. By the way, weren't there going to be snacks? Huh? He brazenly asked. When are they coming? At this rate, I'll be eating them for dinner. She wondered miserable. I'll be able to overcome this, right? Later Ella asked her. My lady, did you have a nice chat with Mr. Beasley? She was completely infatuated by him. You don't know how amazing he was when he saved you. Hearing that, Sally wondered, when did he suddenly become Mr. Beasley? She recalled last night, after I finished my talk with the demon lord, Ella told me about what happened in the woods. Just like his first attack, he took down the remaining monsters in the blink of an eye, and then escorted us safely back to the manor. Or at least, so she says, Ella told. Mr. Beasley sent all the monsters flying with just a single motion. I wish you'd seen it, my lady, Sally said inwardly. Right. And he also sent me flying through the air, Ella added. I don't know what we would have done without him. Of course, the most important thing is that you're safe, Sally then asked. So there are only good rumors about this beast of the night? Ella replied thoughtfully. I wasn't sure either, so I asked around, but everyone only had good things to say about him. They say some people in the slums even worship him like a god. Hearing that, Sally thinks, they all believe such nonsense? That man is the demon lord who made the whole world tremble in horror. He can never be a hero. However, I am confused about one thing. When the demon lord resurrected, a rift appeared in the woods. Monsters poured out of it, and caused great harm. When the demon lord was defeated, the rift disappeared, allowing us to be certain that everything was over. If that's the case, since a new rift hasn't appeared, can we really still refer to that man as the demon lord? A knock disrupted her thought. My lady, his grace has returned. She went to her father and called him. Her father replied. Sally, did you have a nice chat with our guest? She hesitated. Well, I heard you allowed that man to stay in the manor, he replied. That's correct. He saved my precious daughter, so I must repay his kindness, her father smiled, saying. Plus, I heard the young man is referred to as the hero of the slums. It's hard to come across such a respectable young person these days. Having an esteemed man like him staying in our home is a truly invaluable opportunity. Don't you think? She felt burdened. You're right. But wouldn't it be enough to express our gratitude with money? Her father said. Of course, we'll be paying the young man too. But since he doesn't have a place to stay at the moment, I think it would be good to receive him at our manor for the time being, she argued. But we don't know where he's from. He might be dangerous. How could you just let a strange man? Her father stopped her with a cold gaze. Selonia, she stopped talking. Her father said, never forget your duty as a noble. If you have plenty, it's important to know how to share. She thinks in her mind, it's not like I didn't expect this kind of response from father. But still, I can't help but feel frustrated. Noblesse oblige. The belief that nobles should act generously toward as many people as possible. It's a belief Duke Galloway Bessin has held on to his entire life. But I can't give up here. I need to stop him, even if it means revealing the truth. It's not something easy to believe, but if it's coming from his beloved daughter, then perhaps he'll believe me even if I say that man is the demon lord, she began. Father, that man is actually… She suddenly stopped in between. She tried to speak again but couldn't. Humph. She wondered, what's happening? I suddenly can't speak now that I'm trying to tell him about the demon lord. Her father asked confused. Selonia? What's wrong? She said to herself. I'd like to know that as well. I don't know what's going on. But speaking is not the only way I can tell him. She glanced around thinking, what other method can I use? Her gaze fell on paper. Right. I'll just write it down and show him. She grabbed a paper and said, please look at this, father. She began writing that man is. Her father recited what she wrote. She wasn't able to write ahead it. She struggled to write but couldn't. She wondered, wait, why can't I write properly? She said aloud. What's going on? The words repeated in her mind, demon lord. Demon lord. Demon lord. She felt confused. Why can't I speak, or even write those words? Her father stopped her. Selonia, enough. She tried to alter. Wait, father, he said. Whatever the case, he saved your life, and all eyes are on him right now. If we simply handed him some money and kicked him out, what would people think of the Bessin family? Hearing that, she resolved, it looks like I won't be able to persuade father. I should have known better. He always considers the house's reputation first, and no one will be able to understand my problem with that man anyway. I'll just do as father suggested for now. I have no choice but to keep an eye on him while I look for another solution. She finally accepted. All right, I'll see to it that he finds his stay here comfortable. Her father smiled. That's my girl. He patted her, saying, Selonia, you don't know how startled I was when I heard you fell unconscious again. Your body shouldn't be harmed in any way. Make sure to always be careful. You're all that I have. Don't forget that. Later at night, the demon lord was huffing and puffing. He was feeling pain in his chest. He thinks in his mind, damn it. Selonia Bessin, was it? Her face definitely indicated she knew me. He remembered her words. I swore you were dead. He wondered, what sort of relationship did we have for her to say that? He thinks in his mind, well, it doesn't matter as long as I regain my memory. The only person who remembers me. A glimmer in the darkness. He grinned to himself. I can't miss this opportunity. If she plans to hide the truth until the end, I'll just have to make her talk myself. The Cherville Manor. Ian crumpled a piece of paper. Damn it, the news read. Does Ian, a man of many sins, deserve to be called a savior? Ian Cherville and his new lover, Grace Benet, is it romance or adultery? He was furious. Have they lost their minds? How could they write such nonsense? He ordered his attendant. Put together a list of all the newspapers and report back to me, the servant replied. Yes, Your Grace. The sound of crackling paper filled the room as Ian read the article again. Does he deserve to be called a savior? This is ridiculous. How dare they question my qualifications because of such a small issue? I'm one of the saviors who took down the demon lord. They used to respect and worship me, and now, these fickle people have turned their backs on me so easily. Do they think they'll be fine after writing such horrid gossip about me? A servant stepped forward hesitantly. Your Grace, what should I do about this letter from House Bessin? He replied. Bring it to me. Ian took the letter and scanned it, his thoughts wandering. He thinks in his mind. I always considered Selonia to be an innocent and loving woman, but the behavior she showed outside of Roblink that day was rude and vulgar. He remembered her words. Are you proudly showing everyone the woman with whom you cheated on me? It turns out she's been deceiving me all this time, he thought bitterly. They go on about her being some tragic heroine, but these articles would have never been published if they knew her true self. Asterisk. The word tragic doesn't suit that woman at all. I wish everyone could see that. The servant handed him the letter. The letter, Your Grace. It's probably a request for compensation in return for the broken engagement, he mused. She must want something big, considering how she even made me write a pledge. He opened the letter, and after a brief moment, his expression darkened. He grits his teeth and said, "Now," the servant asked. "Pardon?" Ian seethed. "Send a letter to House Bessin immediately saying I'll be visiting today," he ordered sharply. The servant flinched at his tone. "Yes, Your Grace." Meanwhile, Selonia sat in her study, staring at a half-written letter. "Dear Lady Abel, Lady Pelaine, and Lady Rowena, the tea time we decided to have at my house will have to be postponed for the time being. Due to an unwanted guest, I'm unable to invite you to." She crumpled the paper. "No, what's the use?" Instead, she started anew. "I hope you will attend my celebratory banquet, which will soon take place at the palace. I hope we can pick up where we left off on that day." She felt assured. This should do. She set the letter aside and picked up another blank sheet. "Dear Sir Leif," she hesitated. "I don't know how to start this letter. I had no idea I'd be writing this kind of letter to Leif," she murmured. "But since I don't know when the Demon Lord might regain his memory, I should inform the other saviors of the situation as well. And among them, Leif is the one most likely to listen to what I have to say. Right, there's no need to beat around the bush. I'll just get straight to the point. That will be the best for both of us." Taking a deep breath, she steadied her pen. "Leif, you probably won't believe this, but the Demon Lord has resurrected." Her hand trembled. The pen scratched against the paper before suddenly stopping. Her breath hitched. "The Demon Lord." She tried again, but her hands shook violently. She wondered, "Damn it, why won't it let me write his name? Why is this happening? What could be the reason?" She tossed the paper thinking, "While I'm struggling here, the Demon Lord apparently went somewhere without informing anyone. It's not that I am curious what he's up to. I just really wish he wouldn't act out. I can't believe I need to live in the same house with such a dangerous man." Finally she stretched her arms, saying, "I don't know anymore." Suddenly a maid came and informed. "My lady, Deputy Chief Jillian has arrived," she said. "Ah, really? Just as quick as I expected," she instructed. "Tell him I'd like to see him in my study." Minutes later, Jillian entered the room. "Greetings, my lady. Thank you for making the time. I'm sure you must be busy with the guild," she said, gesturing for him to sit. "This time, I'd like to request information regarding the Beast of the Night. In addition, please tell me if you notice any strange things happening in the Empire." Jillian complied. "All right. Oh, and one more thing," she added, her voice dropping slightly. He asked. "Yes?" she said. "About Grace Benet. I need you to keep a close eye on her." Her expression hardened, thinking, "I'm no longer curious about her relationship with the other saviors. I must find out if she has any connection to the Demon Lord now. It's suspicious how Grace and the Demon Lord showed up at a similar time," she added, gripping the desk. "Something strange is happening to the original story." Jillian nodded. "Sure, I'll put someone on her tail right away," she instructed. "Select someone who can maintain confidentiality." "I don't want any word getting out," he replied. "Yes, I have someone suitable." Then, suddenly, a commotion erupted outside. "Your Grace, please, I ask you to wait until her ladyship approves," a servant pleaded. Heavy footsteps stomped toward the room. Ian shouted, "Get out of the way! Didn't I tell you it's an important matter concerning Lady Selonia?" The voice made Selonia stiffen. This voice. "It looks like the unwanted visitor has come sooner than I expected." The doors flung open, and a tall, imposing figure stepped in. Jillian whispered beside her, "Does Duke Cherville still bother you? If you want, I can take care of him." He gets alarmed as he said that. "And no need for that, Jillian," she replied quickly. "I'm all right," she said to him. "You can go now. Sorry for keeping you so long." Jillian hesitated before bowing. "Goodbye, my lady." As Jillian left, Ian stepped forward, burst opening the door. He shouted, "Lady Selonia, have a word with me." The servants rushed to stop him. "Your Grace, please don't." "It's all right, everyone," Selonia said, standing. "Please step aside." She met Ian's gaze with a composed expression. "Have a seat, Duke Cheryl," she said coolly. "I know why you're creating all this commotion. I'll listen to what you have to say first, before I hold you responsible for your rudeness. Then I guess it'll be easier for me to talk to you since you know," Ian said, his voice firm. "Lady Selonia, please explain to me in a way I can understand." "Enough." Her sharp tone cut through his words. "If you wish to talk to me, please keep your manners. There's not a single person in House Bessin who will speak to a goon." What happened to the dignity a duke should display? She continued coldly. He dropped his jaw. What? She continued. And didn't they tell you to wait? I already had a visitor. She leaned back in her chair as his temper flared. My ears are about to burst because of your shouting, Duke Cherville. Is this all the elegance you have to show? Ian scoffed. Ha! What about you? You must have forgotten who I am. Is this how House Bessin will be treating the Cherville family from now on? Why are you involving our families in this personal matter? She countered. Her gaze was ice cold. This is between you and me, Ian. Anyway, continue with the talk about the letter. He watched her, annoyed at how effortlessly she talked back to him. I get why you're acting like this, but watch your tongue, he warned. The reason the once innocent and lovable Selonia has become a venomous viper is obvious. It looks like you hold a grudge against me because I chose another woman over you, he continued. However, it's disgraceful of you to act out like this because of jealousy. Listening to that, she thinks, is he really out of his mind? She narrowed her eyes. Are you serious? Otherwise, why else would you go this far? Ian shrugged. Then she said, let's just get to the point. You personally paid me a visit because of the compensation issue, right? That's right, the compensation, he said, as if just remembering. He sat back, waving a hand. What you asked for is out of the question, so request something else. I'll give you whatever you want. Something like a mine or real estate, Your Grace. Selonia interrupted, tilting her head slightly. I think you've misunderstood something. You're talking to the heir of the Golden House of Bessin. You haven't forgotten that, have you? She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Do I have to explain to you why all of those things are absolutely useless to me? Ian inhaled sharply as she continued. All I want is what's in that letter. His mood shifted. Why do you need that? Are you thinking of using it yourself? That's none of your business, she replied smoothly. I'm requesting that because it's the only thing I want. The only thing of value to me in House Cherville is that sword, she stated. She thinks in her mind. The thing I requested as compensation is the sword Ian used to kill the Demon Lord. Sure, the sword holds great symbolism since it was used to slay the Demon Lord. But the real reason I asked for this sword is because it will become a holy sword in the future. Is there something you know about that sword that I don't? He asked. No what? She snapped. He replied. Forget it. Anyway, ask me for something else, Ian insisted. I'll give you anything else you want, she scoffed. You're the one who's acting strange, Duke Cherville. You seem very reluctant to give it to me, she mused, studying his tense posture. Is it because the sword holds some sort of special power? Ian flinched. Don't be ridiculous, he barked. She smiled. All right. That's good to know. Ian felt his frustration spike as she continued. Why are you so upset? Then please send it to the Bessin Manor by tomorrow. And don't think of fooling me, she added. I'm going to ask the Imperial Court to notarize it. Tisk. Ian clicked his tongue. The jealousy of a woman is truly annoying. She watched him with cool amusement. Look at him, spewing nonsense again. Oh, and while you're here, she said suddenly, a congratulatory banquet will be held at the palace for me soon. As you know, I was the only one who couldn't attend the victory ceremony, she continued. Ha! Ian scoffed. Are you actually asking me to attend your banquet after everything that happened? I have no intention of going to such a, she replied. Yes, please don't come. Ian froze. I was worried that you might actually come, so I wanted to tell you not to. I'm glad we're on the same page, she added. Please leave now, she said. Just looking at you is hard to bear, he sprung up saying. I can't listen to this rubbish anymore. I hope we won't have to see each other again, he said coldly. And this is a warning for old time's sake, but I suggest you don't infuriate me again, she remarked. Pretentious until the end, she said. Good day. I won't be seeing you off. He turned away without another word. As Ian stormed out, his heart pounded furiously. Damn it, what's that attitude of hers? Does she not miss me even a single bit? Has she truly forgotten about me this soon? Before he could process the emotion swirling in his chest, a commotion outside drew his attention. All right, geez, you're so annoying, a voice groaned. The servant murmured. She's still in conversation. You shouldn't be here. Ian turned to see a tall figure standing near the entrance. He narrowed his eyes. Look, I told you they'd be done talking soon, the Demon Lord continued. I can go in now, right? Huh? Are you a servant? Ian asked. Get out of my way. Hearing that, the Demon Lord stood silent for a second, then grinned. There was someone here. I didn't see you because you're so small, Ian stiffened. I'm S small? The air grew tense. Ian's entire body tensed. Wherever I go, no one has ever exceeded me, he thought bitterly. Everyone has always looked up to me. So who the hell is this cocky bastard? Selonia, I need to talk to you, the man said. Ian's blood ran cold. Did he just call her by her name? He took a step forward and his shoulder bumped into Ian. Ian shouted, Hey, who do you think? Enough. Selonia cut in. You just can't help yourself, can you? Please don't be rude to my guest. Ian froze in place. What? Did you just say guest? That's right. Our house owes him, so please refrain from being discourteous, Selonia said smoothly. You really should go now. Selonia and the person started whispering. She said, I told you to stay in your room, he replied. Are you trying to keep me locked up? Ian could barely register her words. She has someone else, other than me? His vision swam. Why am I feeling this way? Later, walking towards him, Grace called. Sir Leif. Leif looked at her. Ah, Miss Grace, here you are. I've been looking all over for you, she responded with a smile. Did you really come all this way for me? He asked. If you had called, I would have come to you right away, he assured her. She replied. It's all right. You came to mind today, so I thought I would drop by. It's today, isn't it, Leif? He said. Yes, it is, she asked. When do you start? He replied. It's almost time. I'll go in as soon as the preparations are finished. Knowing that I wouldn't be able to see you for some time, I already felt sad. I'm genuinely happy that I was able to see you before I left. For 15 days out of the year, the Holy Knights participate in a sacred ritual. It is a ceremony meant to erase the fatigue and worries experienced in the secular world and to regain purity and virtue. Me too. But I wanted to give you this. She reached into her bag. I made this thinking of you, Leif. The ritual must be tiring, so have this as a snack afterward. What is it? He asked. I'm a bit embarrassed to say since it's nothing fancy, but it's a cake that I baked myself at home. She smiled softly. I made it using parjiling leaves since I know you like them. You'll be hungry after the ritual, so I made this for you to eat. It should last 15 days. He gets surprised. Miss Grace, are you saying you remembered what I told you? A few months ago, during the victory ceremony, they had spoken briefly about the holy ritual. I see it's already time for that. I hope it goes well, though I know it'll be tough, Ian had said. Don't worry. It's not that hard. It's just a ritual that every holy knight must attend annually. It's nothing extraordinary, Leif had replied. Mac Ryan added, he's lying when he says it isn't difficult. The holy knights had to fast for 15 days. I could never make it, he giggled. Haha, Mac Ryan, back to present, Leif said. I'm very pleased. I remember just briefly mentioning it to you at the victory ceremony, but I see you remembered it all this time. Grace smiled. Of course. It's something that concerns you, not just anyone. Make sure you eat it afterward. You could feel dizzy if you suddenly move too much after fasting. All right? I will, Miss Grace. He took the cake from her hands. That's a promise. You have to eat at least one slice, she insisted playfully. As they were talking, a priest came and said, Sir Leif, it's time to go to the temple. Oh, all right. He turned back. Miss Grace, I must go now. Suddenly Grace grabbed his arm. He blushed. Miss Grace, she said. Leif, promise me that you'll return in good health and come to see me. Yes, I give you my word, he replied, his heart was racing. Meanwhile, Sally was thinking, everything went well up until I sent Ian home. What brings you here? She asked as she turned to face the demon lord. You make it sound like I'm harassing you, he replied coolly. Who was that guy earlier? She halted in her mood. He asked. Do you dislike him? She replied. Sorry? He asked ominously. If he's bothering you, should I kill him for you? Her breath caught. What did he just say? He'll kill him for me? Does this mean that while he may have lost his memory, his temperament still remains? She clenched her fists. How could he say something so inhumane without missing a beat? She asked. What are you? He pressed. Just tell me if that's what you want. I can bring you his head. It's not that difficult, she replied. So that's what you meant, forget it. She exhaled sharply. No matter how much I hate someone, I'd never want to do such a thing. His expression was indifferent. Looking at your face earlier, I thought you wanted to kill the bastard. Maybe I was wrong, she felt annoyed. I told you that's not what I want, he said. I just thought it might be a good condition for our deal, but I guess I misunderstood, she thought. Condition for our deal? Just like I thought. He's convinced that I know who he is, she sighed. It looked like things were going to get complicated. Later at night, she was walking reflecting, is it because of all the stressful things that have been happening lately? I just can't sleep at night. While the demon lord was at the manor, the things I had been concerned about never happened. I thought he would create problems and act violently. But other than bumping into him every now and then in the hallway, he rarely left his room. I heard he's not even eating. Is it alright to just leave him like this? Suddenly she heard someone groaning in pain. Ugh, she wondered, huh? What's this sound? Keg. She followed the voice and reached the door. Wait, this is the room where the demon lord is staying. What in the world is he doing? A month ago. An abandoned house, deep in the woods, with no signs of habitation. That was where the demon lord woke up after having lost his entire memory. In order to find out who he was, he wandered from town to town, but wasn't able to find any clues or people who knew him for over a month. What he did find out was that he could wield a strange power, and every time the clock hit midnight, an unbearable pain came over him. He felt a throbbing pain in his chest. It was a dreadful pain that couldn't be described in words. He wondered, will I be able to make this suffering go away if I retrieve my memory? Suddenly Selonia opened the door and asked, "Excuse me, what are you doing in there?" There was no one in the room. Huh, I definitely heard something. She again heard a groan that was coming from the bathroom. She walked to the door and asked, "Hey, what are you doing in there? Is something wrong?" She knocked the door and said, "If you don't answer, I'm coming in." She creaked open the door and saw Demon Lord lying on the ground. She rushed to him. Hey, are you alright? Did you hurt yourself? Let me take a look." As she gets close to him, he shouted, "Get out! I'll take care of it myself, so get out," she argued. "Now's not the time to let your pride get in the way. You're bleeding. Wait here, I'll go get the physician," he said. "It's none of your business, so get." He wasn't able to continue as the pain arose again. Arg! Hearing that, Selonia rushed back saying, "It looks like we don't even have time to call a physician. Wait, I'll use my healing power too." Suddenly she halted, wondering, wait, what am I doing right now? I barely managed to take the demon lord down, and now I'm trying to save him. Then again, leaving him like this might cause a misunderstanding. What if he realizes that I'm hesitating to treat him because I know he's the demon lord? But on the other hand, what if he regains his memory after seeing my healing power? Suddenly servant came and asked, "My lady, are you alright?" We heard a loud noise. Her mind was conflicted. Still, is it really okay for me to leave him like this? I'm a healer, so I can't neglect a person in need. She concluded, "Right, I'll save him for now," she instructed. "I'm glad you're here. It looks like our guest is severely hurt. Please call the physician," the servant complied. "Yes, my lady." They hurriedly took the demon lord and started treating him. Selonia said, "It's going to hurt, but please bear with me. The physician will arrive soon and take a look at you." He was still in pain and panting, but refused. "Get out," she began. "Before he comes, let me perform some first aid." He grabbed her arm saying, "I told you not to touch me." As he grabbed her hand, something glowed and the pain stopped. While in shock, he thinks in his mind, "This unidentified pain pierced me like a knife." Whenever it became midnight. But what drove me even more insane was the fact that this agony, that felt like my body was being ripped into pieces, would suddenly disappear with the sunrise, as if it were a mirage. To think that the first person to free me from this suffering, just when it felt like it would last forever, was this woman. "Who is she?" she asked him. "Hey, what's wrong? Do you feel better now?" He grabbed her hand and pulled her close. He then asked, What are you? How did you do it?" she asked. "What are you talking about? I'm trying to treat you. How could I just leave you when you're in such pain?" He reflected. After touching this woman, the pain disappeared completely. "If I let go of this hand, the suffering might," he said. "Then do so while holding my hand." She gets confused. "Excuse me?" he said. "I'll let you treat me if you hold my hand." She gulped. "Huh!" Looking at him, she thinks he looks rather desperate, unlike his usual image. She agreed. "Alright, but loosen your grip a bit, will you? Let me take a look at this part." Suddenly she realized, wait, aren't we a little too close? Then a servant came with a physician and said, "My lady, I brought the physician." Seeing Selonia and the demon lord close, he felt awkward. He laughed awkwardly. "Haha, should we leave?" Seeing the situation getting worse, she shouted, "It's a misunderstanding. The imperial family hereby confirms that this sword is authentic." Looking at the sword, she thinks, Ian's sword, which I asked for as compensation, has finally arrived. Unlike my worries that he might play some tricks, fortunately, it looks like he didn't mess with the sword. Now that I have received my compensation, I'm sure I won't need to see Ian again. Just as I thought, it was a great decision to ask him for the sword. Look at this brilliant blade. Suddenly the demon lord came and asked. Are you done talking? She said inwardly. I told him to knock. Well, I'm not as surprised anymore, now that I've dealt with him a few times. She asked. Are you feeling better? Yesterday, your wounds looked pretty bad. Last night the physician said, while your wounds are deep, they aren't fatal. It seems you underwent a cycle of healing and infection due to a lack of proper treatment. But seeing the severity of the wounds, it must have been very painful, and there's something slightly artificial about them as well. If I may ask, how did you get hurt? The demon lord replied. I don't know. They were there when I woke up 3 months ago after being unconscious for a while. After hearing that Sally thinks 3 months ago? That coincides with when the saviors and I went to take down the demon lord. These wounds are definitely from when I stabbed him. While it's true that I feel uneasy, I can't be concerned about that right now. The most important thing is to kick this man out, he said. Well, it's bearable. Thanks to a certain someone. But, his gaze fell on the sword, so he asked, What's that sword? She wondered, does he remember it? But if he doesn't even recognize this, then I have no choice but to sound him out to see just how much he actually remembers, she replied. It's a holy sword. It was the sword used to subjugate the demon lord, he replied. Is that so? She figured out few. I guess he really doesn't know anything, he asked. Is it yours? She replied. No, it used to belong to the blonde man you bumped into last time, he asked. So that man's still coming and going, huh? Seems I let him off the hook too easily, she replied. And no, he just sent me the sword. By now, he's probably too busy going crazy and causing a scene to even think of coming here. The Cherville Manor. Ian was lashing out on the surrounding. Damn it, he said to himself. That sword isn't just any old sword. It's a prized item that even the Emperor coveted. I can't believe I had to give it to that useless woman. I felt a strong energy from it ever since the demon lord died. So I had been waiting, thinking the sword might be imbued with the powers of the demon lord. He remembered, moreover, who in the world was that arrogant bastard? How dare he not even bow to me when I'm a duke? I can't let this slide. Selonia is probably using him to make me jealous. But even so, how could she allow for such rude behavior? Just how far is she going to stoop? That pretentious, cocky guy. I'll make sure to teach him a lesson. A servant informed. Your Grace, Miss Grace is here. The door opened and she came smiling. Your Grace. She glanced around and said, Oh my! Why is it so messy in here? Ian said to himself. Good grief, I need a break, he said coldly. Do you not see that I'm busy right now? Hearing that, chills ran down her spine. She flinched, but Ian quickly retracted. No, Grace. What I meant to say was, Grace cut him off. I understand. I see it was my mistake to come home today. I won't bother you anymore. She turned and started walking. He tried to stop him. Grace, wait. But she didn't stop and left, slamming the door. Then he thinks, damn it. What's wrong with me? My head's all jumbled up. Something like this would have never bothered me before. Dinner party at the Bessin Manor. At the dining table her father laughed. Ha! It's good to see everyone here, Selonia said. I know. It's been a while since we've all had a meal together like this, her father said. Sally, it's your first time seeing Sir Rubwis in ages, isn't it? She replied. Yes, father, she said inwardly. Actually, it's my first time seeing him at all, Rubwis said. I hope you've been well, my lady, Rubius said, captain of House Bessin's Order of Knights. As the second son of Count Sip, he received numerous job offers due to his exceptional talent. Yet, he chose to remain as the captain of House Bessin's Order of Knights out of his loyalty to head of the house. Her father added, I also should have invited our honorable guest to dinner much sooner. I ask for your understanding, as I've been occupied with many work affairs, the demon lord replied. No matter. Everyone gets shocked and confused. No matter? As Rubwis glared at him, Sally thinks, this is why I didn't want him to meet anyone else. Rubwis asked with a chilly tone. You there? How dare you show such disrespect to his grace? Her father interjected. It's fine, Rubwis. He is the man who saved Sally's life. He has his own reasons, so don't concern yourself with such trifles, he replied. Is that so? Forgive me, your grace. Lady Selonia, are you all better now? She said. Yes. Thank you for your concern, Sir Rubwis, he said. That's good news. I couldn't sleep because I was so worried. She chuckled at his remark. Then the demon lord said, You look quite rested for someone who hasn't been sleeping. Saley gets startled hearing that. Rubwis asked, What? Saley quickly jumped and shouted to the servants. Excuse me, is dinner not ready yet? A servant replied. My apologies, my lady. We're bringing out the food now. Saley prayed, Please, just one day. Can't we just spend one day in peace? Please. The mood was so grim. The silence in the room only amplified the tension. Her father finally spoke. By the way, I heard our honorable guest had some serious wounds. Are they healing all right? A nudge followed the question, urging for a proper answer. Humph, I'll be fine, he responded dismissively. A sigh escaped Saley. What was I even expecting? Why that cocky? The thought was interrupted by a sudden chuckle. Her father said, Haha, I'm glad to hear you're feeling better, but I heard you've been skipping your meals. I'll tell the servants to take extra care of you, so make sure to eat well. You must think of your health. Is it really necessary that I eat? He asked, as if the concept was foreign to him. Her father asked, Oh dear, you speak as if you're someone who's never been hungry before. Your wounds won't heal properly if you don't eat. He continued, You need to pay special attention to these things when you're hurt. He looked at the food for a moment, and then asked, What is being hungry? The question echoed in everyone's mind. Aha! No wonder it felt like something was wrong, Rubwis mused. Seeing that you don't know what it means to be hungry, you must have hurt your head too. That's right. Saley quickly agreed. A sharp glare followed. She continued, I think he hurt his head too because I noticed he has trouble sensing things. I see. That's why you must not feel hungry like other people do, her father observed, gazing at him curiously. Just then, a knock at the door interrupted the conversation. A servant informed, Your Grace, it's time for you to leave, her father said. Ah, I see it's already time. Rising from his seat, he turned to face the others. Selonia, I'm sorry, but Rabenis and I must go now. I hope our honorable guest understands too. Rubwis also stood up. Till we meet again, my lady. Goodbye. Few months ago. Thank you for your help. A young man stepped forward, eyes bright with gratitude. Why, you're my savior. I run a cafe in the city center. Please drop by when you have time. I'll have some freshly baked bread ready for you. The man added eagerly. After getting the bread, a single thought crossed his mind. Who needs something like this? Suddenly a kid said. Excuse me, he replied. Scram, the kid asked. Are you going to have all of that by yourself? A faint growl echoed in response. Thank you. They bowed deeply after receiving the bread. Thank you, sir. It's so delicious. It's enough to last us a few days, the kid said to other. The demon lord wondered, hungry? Delicious? Why am I not aware of such senses? Why? Now that the tension had eased, Saley felt suddenly starving. The sound of a utensil clinking against a plate brought him back to reality. Go ahead and eat. Father's gone now, Selonia said. She observed him carefully. He might be the demon lord, but he still needs to eat. He looked at the steamy food and wondered. What's this feeling? He glanced at Selonia and then picked a spoon and started eating. Looking at him, Saley thinks his movements are surprisingly natural. He even had proper table manners. Or maybe that's expected of him since he's the demon lord, she mused. So, you haven't eaten anything since you lost your memory? She asked. He replied. That's right. I didn't feel the need to. She thinks in her mind. His lack of basic human needs, hunger, sleep, only reinforced the idea that he was far from human in nature. And yet, looking at him now, he seems just like an ordinary person. Tilting her head slightly, she said, If you want to eat something, you can just ask anyone around here. Will you join me? He asked. She said. No, he said. Then I see no reason to eat. She stared at him, confused. What the? She hesitated at first, then spoke again. By the way, why did you give food to those people? He replied. Because they were in need, she asked. You mean in need of food? No, he replied firmly. They needed me, the one giving out the food. Later at night, Saley reflected on his words. They needed me, the one giving out the food. She thinks, was he trying to recall his memory through the people who needed him? Or could he simply not ignore those in need, even when he couldn't remember anything? He somehow seemed different from his usual self. No, I don't need to try and find out. It doesn't concern me. Anyway, when is he going to come? After the meal, the demon lord made a surprising proposal. She asked. Do you really mean that? He said. Yes. In a month, I'll leave this house of my own accord. That is, provided that you cooperate. She thought. It was a tempting offer. It's good for me if he gives me a reason to kick him out. Let's hear what he has to offer, she asked. What do you want me to do? A grin appeared on his face. Your hand. She gets alert. My hand. A sudden wave of alertness, nervousness, anxiety. He extends his hand towards her. She reached out and he grabbed her hand. He said, when your hand touches me like this, all my pain goes away. This is what I want. She gets shocked. What? You're sounding really strange, she exclaimed. You're talking about the chest pain you feel every night, right? And you're saying I get rid of that pain? He replied. Correct. You must know the reason. Since, after all, you know who I am. She flinched hearing that, then she yanked his hand away and said, so if I hold your hand at midnight every day, you'll leave this house in a month? He accepted. Yes, even if you don't tell me who I am, she complained. I already told you. I don't know anything. But doubts crept in. Won't this be dangerous? I'll have to stay with this man every night. What if I take him up on his offer, and he regains his memory in a month? You want me out of here, right? He said, watching her hesitate. If you won't help me, I plan to stay here for good. He took a stride closer. Your father seemed quite approving of that as well, he added, leaning in. Gee, get away from me. She pushed him back. All right. I'll do it. She rubbed her temples thinking, I'm not too enthusiastic about it, but if I just stick with it for a month, he'll leave, she said. In return, I also have something I want you to do for me, she thought to herself. I need a safeguard as well. That night at midnight, the demon lord appeared in front of her using teleportation. Looking around, he said, so this is your room. She recalled her words. Come to my room, but make sure no one sees you. She gets surprised. He was able to come here, without anyone seeing, because he teleported himself? What's with that face? He asked, amused. I came just as we agreed. He grinned. She replied. Well, I didn't think you'd teleport yourself here, he said. Is that what you call this? Then from now on I'll ugh. Suddenly he faltered. Are you alright? She rushed to him. He plopped on her, staggering. Arg, he blinked. She said, hang in there. I'll get a chair. Both of them sat down. She clasped his wrist gently. He was nauseous, huffing and puffing. She wondered, looking at him. How did we end up like this? Well, at least I made a deal that benefited to two. She recalled the scene before. She said, in return, I also have something I want you to do for me. She met his gaze firmly. Promise me that from now on, you won't lay a finger on me or those around me. She thinks it was the best choice for everyone. She just needed to see it through for 1 month. Just 1 month. After some time, as he calmed down, she said, you definitely don't look as pale as before. She hesitated. So, you'll be coming every night, from now on, right? He replied. Yes. A strange feeling settled in her chest. I feel uneasy. When I see him in pain like this, I can't see him for who he really is, the evil demon lord that deserves to die. She asked. Are you fine once this time passes? He replied. Yes. She hesitated again. I'm asking just in case, but you're going to teleport yourself out of here too, right? He replied. Of course. She felt relief. Then I suppose we won't get caught. He leaned closer. Well then, see you again tomorrow. As he left using teleportation, she thins. He looks like he's in a good mood today. Fresh vegetables and thoroughly cooked meat. That was his first proper meal. He experienced a feeling he never felt before. Hunger. Up until now, nameless and denied by the world, he lived without knowing who he was. But she was the first person to acknowledge his existence. He was certain that if he was with this woman, the shackles of this cursed life would be broken. He raised his hand, thinking. She looked as if she only agreed because it was a month. But does she really think that I'm going to let her go? A grin formed on his lips. Not a chance. Even if I don't get my memory back, and even if that woman didn't tell me anything. He clenched his fist. I'll keep her by my side forever. The next day, the demon lord was banging the door. He was shouting, "Hey, get up!" As he was banging the door, Sally pulled the blanket on her, covering herself. She complained, "Ugh, geez, it's about time you learn how to eat by yourself," the demon lord said. "Come out before I break down the door." Finally, she surrendered and woke up. A week had passed since she agreed to hold the demon lord's hand. Every night at midnight, he teleported to her room, and she held his hand to make his pain subside. A lot of thoughts went through her mind every time she saw him suffer, but she stuck with it in the hopes that everything would be over in a month. "Do I have to eat breakfast with you too?" she protested. You just need to wake up a bit earlier. Is that so hard? He replied nonchalantly. Achie, she grumbled. I'm lacking sleep because of you. I don't want to get up early, but I can't refuse either, because eating every meal together was part of the deal we made. She thinks in her mind, he could survive without eating, so why was he being so fickle? At least he upheld his part of the deal. If I kept my promise like this, he wouldn't teleport himself anywhere except at midnight, and he wouldn't harm anyone in the house. And yet, as she was thinking, she dozed off. The demon lord wondered, is she dozing off in the middle of her meal? I've never seen someone like her, he muttered, watching her. She's certainly a sight to see. She thought, I wondered if people knew how bothersome it was to deal with a demon lord who had lost his memory. Later, what's that? He asked, pointing outside. They're the family's knights. It seems they're training, she answered. He asked again. And that? She replied. A pigeon. He kept asking about different things as he saw them. She narrowed her eyes, thinking, was he pretending not to know just to mess with me? Aren't you going to the cafe today? She asked. You need to give out bread to the people. Go on, ask me your next question, he replied. I already went while you slept until the middle of the day. I have no idea why you feel the need to sleep so much. She froze. The middle of the day. I never slept until that late. She clenched her fists. I don't want to hear such questions from a demon lord. She was about to retort further when he noticed something. Who are they? He asked, frowning at a pair in the distance. She turned to look. What now? The couple stood close, lovey-dovey, and then they kissed. She froze for a moment, then she turned to them, face burning. Don't kiss there. Go somewhere where no one can see you. The maid gasped. Oh my, Lady Selonia. Yes, of course. The demon lord tilted his head. So, what were they doing? She sighed. It's just something people do when they like each other. Just because they like each other? He repeated. She blushed, averting her gaze. Yes, that's what I said. Later, Jillian came to give the information, he said. The information you requested, my lady, she replied. Thank you. She reflected. Jillian had come to see me again after finishing his investigation. Thanks to his arrival, I was able to escape the demon lord's annoying questions. I had hoped to obtain some new information, but, he said, this is all I found on the beast of the night. Her heart sank hearing that. She flipped through the papers. They were no different from before. There's hardly any new information, she muttered. I'm sorry, Jillian said. According to his findings, the beast of the night had been staying in the slums after appearing 3 months ago. He had run into some trouble with thugs harassing the people. In other words, insignificant information. If this was everything a guild under one of the Empire's great dukes could find, maybe this really was all there was. Miss Grace hasn't made any noticeable moves either, Jillian added. She thinks in her mind, but there was no way all of this had just happened by coincidence. Then what was I missing? I needed to find another way to obtain information outside of the Finesse Guild, she said. Thank you. That will be enough for today, he stood up saying. My apologies for not living up to your expectations. I'll continue investigating and visit you right away if I find anything new, she replied. All right. Thank you for coming. As he was walking away, she thinks, do I need to find a new information guild? Then she noticed a note. Did Jillian drop it? She reached out to pick it up, calling, Jillian, I think you left this. He stopped. Pardon? What do you? He flinched seeing the note, and quickly snatched it from Selonia. She gets shocked at his odd behavior. He hesitated. My apologies. I was just so surprised that She grinned, asking, What is it? A love letter? Jillian replied. Yes, well, something like that. Good day, my lady. He left as soon as he said that. Selonia was stunned, thinking, this isn't a dream, is it? She recalled, I definitely just saw a strange magic circle. And below that, Grace's name, Grace Benet. On the memo that Jillian had, there was a drawing in the form of a magic circle and Grace's name, Grace Benet. I don't know what it means, but Jillian's behavior was rather strange. He works for father, so whatever the reason, it's possible that he's hiding things from me. If I want to find out more, it may be best to inquire somewhere else. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden banging on the door. My lady, it's Ella. I think you should quickly come outside, Saley called out. Ella? Ella shouted. Sir Rubwis is in trouble. Mr. Beastly, When they reached the servants already present, they were whispering to each other. What do we do? Shouldn't we stop them? The murmurs and whispers of the servants filled the air. She stepped forward. Step aside, everyone. She saw Rubwis on the ground while the demon lord was standing holding the sword. She said inwardly, I urged him not to hurt anyone in this house. She spoke sternly. Enough. What do you think you're doing? She stared at him. Sheath your sword right now. Rubwis tried to stand. It's all right, my lady. I'm fine. I can handle TAGH. He groaned in pain. She asked. Sir Rubwis, are you all right? She ordered a servant. Take him to the physician right now. The servant complied. Yes, my lady. The servant asked Rubwis. Do you think you can walk? He replied, yes, if you assist me. After they left, she turned to the demon lord. Was it that difficult to keep your word? He replied. I just did what he wanted me to do. She thought, he's not feeling sorry at all. This is all my fault. I should have never trusted that the demon lord would keep his promise. At times, he looked like a normal human being, and seeing him in pain made me feel that way even more. But, she gripped her hand tightly, saying, I can no longer trust you, but I'm going to continue with our deal. I will keep my promise. I don't think I need to say more. I hope you won't forget your promise that you will leave this manor in a month. She turned and started walking as she said that. The demon lord left the sword there. Seeing the situation unfold, Ella said to herself, oh no. It was already way past dinner time, but Selonia chose not to go down to the dining room. She thinks, it must be way past dinner time. When it becomes midnight, I wonder if he'll shamelessly show up again. Is it unrealistic of me to expect any form of human behavior from him? Suddenly Ella knocked the door and called, I'm coming in, my lady. She presents the tea. Here's the hot tea you requested. Sally replied. Thank you, Ella said. I heard Sir Rubwis will recover soon if he massages his shoulders with some hot towels. Sally picked her cup, saying, Really? That's good news, Ella continued. But his grace seems a bit disappointed in him. The fact that the head knight was wounded indicates Mr. Beastly is exceptionally skilled, Sally then said. All right. Can you leave me to be by myself now? Ella gets flustered. Oh, my lady! Are you not interested to hear more about Mr. Beastly? She replied. No, I'm a bit tired, Ella pressed. But there's something you don't know, my lady, she asked. What? Ella began. Remember how you ordered me to be with Mr. Beastly? I know it's not my place to interfere, but what I'm about to tell you may be important. Sir Rubwis wasn't the only one who was injured earlier. Mr. Beastly was also cut. I clearly saw blood dripping from his arm. Sally said, No way. You're saying he got cut by Rubia's sword? Ella said. It's true, my lady. And the duel that took place earlier wasn't because of an argument. Mr. Beastly simply responded to Sir Rubwis. Rubwis taunted. Do you think you're someone important just because his grace calls you an honorable man? You only caught her ladyship's attention because you were lucky. You're a mere beggar. You should know your place. Asterisk. She felt chills. What? Ella continued. And Sir Rubwis was the first one too. Sally cut her off. Ella, gather all the knights and servants who are at the training grounds here. Tell them I have something I'd like to ask them. While Selonia was meeting Jillian, the demon lord asked Ella, Hey, where's Lady Selonia? She replied, She's gone to receive a guest. Then Rubwis came and said, So this is where you were. We meet again, guest of Lady Selonia. He grinned. Perfect. I actually had something I wanted to say to our special guest. I had no idea you were still in the manor. I know his grace favors you, but who knew you'd be so shameless to stay here this long? The demon lord repeated. Shameless? Ella whispered to him. It means you don't know any shame. Rubwis continued, provoking him. Since his grace treats you with respect, you must actually think you're someone important. Ha, the beast of the night? As if you're just a good-for-nothing from the slums. Hearing that, Ella thinks, how immature. Rubwis continued. It seems you're plotting to freeload off her ladyship by using sweet talk, but you're just a mere beggar who used to wander the streets. You're just a parasite who was lucky enough to stay here. Leave right now while I ask you nicely. Stop bothering Lady Selonia. The demon lord brazenly refused. No. Rubwis grits his teeth. What? Why you? He then said. Fine. I heard you wield a good sword, so I'll officially challenge you to a duel. He pointed his sword, saying, If I win, you'll leave the manor before you even have the time to beg for forgiveness. The demon lord asked, And what if I win? He smirked. Ha! That will never happen. What will it be? The demon lord stood silent for a moment, then he said, I accept. At night, Selonia was looking at the clock. A lot of time had passed already. She wondered, is he just being late, or is he not coming? It's already. She recalled the servant saying, it was a standard duel. I watched them from the start, and the guest never used his sword, even though he held it in his hand. Then Sir Rubwis threw soil, and I think that's when he got cut. She thinks, I thought I knew him best, but I was actually unable to see the truth. I doubt his wounds have healed yet. She clenched her fists thinking, let me go look for him. Suddenly, with the sound of thud, the demon lord appeared, groaning in pain. Selonia rushed to him. Hey! She checked him as he was gasping. She said, you're in so much pain. She observed, he looks especially bad today. She removed his shirt and saw the cut on his arm. Blood was dripping from it. She said, I heard you never attacked once. He replied, what does it matter? She concluded, as I thought, he's upset. It was my fault. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions without asking. She said, sorry. He flinched hearing that. He asked, what? She replied, sorry. I made a mistake, he said. Say it again, she said. I genuinely apologize, he pressed. Again, she again said, I'm really sorry. He smiled, this feeling is not too bad. She also smiled. Then she covered his wound with the bandages. Then he called her. You, she replied. Yes? He asked. You said you were sorry, right? She replied. Yes, and I meant it, he said. Then, from now on, don't call me Hey. Call me by my name. She asked. Your name? What's your name? He replied, oblivious. How should I know? Why don't you make one for me? She asked, surprised. And me? He nodded to her. She forced her mind. I need to come up with a name for the demon lord? I think he was only referred to as the demon lord even in the original novel. What else should I call him other than that? She remembered, wait, demon lord. She said then, how about Tan? He repeated. Tan? She said thoughtfully. Yes. It's easy to say and it suits you, he said. It does? All right. Then from now on, my name is Tan, she said inwardly. I'm glad he likes it. But it's a secret that I got the name from the word Satan. Later, Rubwis lashed out and broke the glass in anger. Damn it! He recalled his conversation with the Duke. The Duke Galloway said, you, the captain of House Bessin's Order of Knights, got defeated by the Beast of the Night? With so many witnesses, it's only a matter of time before House Bessin's status comes crashing down. Rubwis pleaded. Why, your grace, please allow me to expla, the Duke shouted. Get out. You'll be on probation for the time being. Rubwis thinks to himself, I worked so hard to become the captain, yet everything almost came tumbling down. Still, if his grace takes matters into his own hands, there won't be any rumors going around, and I'll be able to keep my position as the captain. However, he recalled Selonia saying, I heard everything that happened. It seems you were very discourteous to my special guest. Make sure it never happens again. He tried to stop. And my lady. But she left, slamming the door. She wondered why. Are you taking that man's side? He slammed his hand on table thinking, when wedding talks were being exchanged with Duke Cherville, I was going to step aside. However, I can't hand her over to some beggar from the slums. Unless it's someone better than I am, I will make sure no one else gets her. Montera Street. Montera Street is the largest downtown area in the Flanagan Empire. At its center is the Fountain of the Angel. To the north is an eating district highlighted by Roblink, and to the south, a shopping district with sprawling boutiques and jewelry shops. The east is an accessories district, and the west is a magic district, Ella said while roaming the streets. My lady, today you'll be visiting the magic district in the west and the shopping district in the south, right? She replied. That's right. Today's goal is to find information about Jillian's strange note in the western district, and to have a dress made for my congratulatory party in the southern district, Ella asked. By the way, did you sort everything out with Mr. Beasley? She gets confused. What? Ella said. You had breakfast together. It was a pleasant atmosphere too. She was taken aback for a second, then she replied. Well, I guess you could say we sorted things out. She recalled, like Ella said, I had breakfast with the demon lord, Tan. When I told him he had to eat lunch alone because I needed to go out, he glared at me so angrily. She asked. Ella, you seem to be quite fond of that man, Ella replied. Well, not only is he your savior, but I also realize something important about him. While he may be a bit slow, he's a fair and square man. She wondered, is that a compliment or criticism? Montera Street's Western District. They told description to the shopkeeper. He replied, a magic circle on sheepskin paper? It's a method people no longer use. I'm afraid I don't know. It's been a while since we stocked those because no one asks for them anymore. Well, no one sells outdated products like sheepskin paper these days, Sally replied. I see. She thinks in her mind, maybe I won't be able to find out anything this way. This is bad. But the shopkeeper gave them a clue. How about you check out Weeklander's store? She asked. Sorry? He said. He should be very knowledgeable about old magic. Both Ella and Selonia beamed after hearing that. At Weeklander's store, they entered the shop. Excuse me, anyone there? Ella gets intrigued. My lady, look at this. It feels like jelly, Selonia said. Is no one here? There are a lot of unique items here. Make sure not to touch anything since we don't know what they are. Suddenly a person popped out. That's a house decoration made by prying a goblin's tongue. Ella freaked out for a moment. Sally asked, decorations made from monsters? The shopkeeper said. It's to show off one's power and wealth. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Selonia. It looks like you've been looking for me. They told him the situation. He repeated, sheepskin paper with a magic circle drawn on it, huh? He asked. Do you remember what kind of magic circle it was? She replied. No, I only took a quick glance, Weeklander told. Drawing a magic circle on sheepskin paper is a very old method. If someone was really using it like you said, they may have wanted to hide something. Selonia felt a thump in his mind. He continued, these days, people draw magic circles on portable artifacts. Once you draw the circle, you can keep using it, but it does leave a trace. She mumbled. It leaves a trace. Weeklander explained. It means others can tell what kind of magic you were trying to use. Hearing that, she wondered, what was Jillian trying to hide from me? He added, we don't have what you're looking for here, but a book I own may have a clue. She asked. A book? He said. Yes, it's a book about magic circles. I don't think I'll be able to find it right away since I haven't used it in a long time. But if you give me a few days, I'll be in touch. She resolved. Now I have a way to obtain some hints. She agreed. All right, then I'll be waiting. Come on, Ella. As she was about to leave, the shopkeeper stared at her and asked, wait, my lady. Do you not often feel unwell? She replied. Feel unwell? No, not really. He smiled. That's good to hear. Please make sure to take care of your health. Outside, the coachman asked, my lady, we're headed to the shopping district now, right? Ella replied. Yes. Selonia was still reflecting on his words. Take care of my health, huh? I wonder what he meant. What was Mr. Weeklander trying to say before I left? Meanwhile, Tan visited the slums. As the people saw him approach, they whispered to each other. A kid stepped forward hesitatingly. Tan gave him the bag of bread. The kid smiled and said, thank you as always. He dashed away after saying that. As Tan was about to leave, a person called from behind. Hey, over here! Looking at him, Tan thinks, it's that annoying guy again. Tan's friend from the slums, Maxwell. A few months ago, when Tan woke up in these slums, having lost his memory, he approached Tan without hesitation and offered various forms of help. Maxwell said, I haven't seen you around lately. You look so much better since you've been staying at the Duke's Manor. Tan said, stop following me around. Go and have some bread or something. He trailed behind him saying, come on. Tell me all about the Duke's Manor. Is Lady Selonia really pretty? Tan froze after hearing that. He turned and asked, pretty? Maxwell said, yes. You must have seen her, haven't you? I'm curious if she's as beautiful as the rumors say. Tan repeated in his mind, pretty? Beautiful? If Selonia is beautiful, what does being beautiful mean? I did think she resembled some flowers I saw on the street. A small, simple, purple flower that makes you stop in your tracks and have a closer look. He glared at Maxwell. And how do you know that woman? Maxwell shrugged. You're joking, right? Who in this empire doesn't know Lady Selonia? She's one of the 4 saviors. Tan gets surprised. Savior. Selonia's a savior. He asked, what's a savior? Maxwell gets shocked. How could you not know about such a famous story? Want me to tell you? The story of the 4 saviors. That will become a legend one day. At Verondi Boutique, the boutique owner presented a design of a dress and asked, my lady, how about this one? It will match your lovely lilac-colored hair perfectly. Sally smiled. I guess it's not bad. The Verandy Boutique. It's a dress shop run by a designer every noble lady in the empire desires to work with. As the Empress's exclusive boutique, securing even a single appointment can be challenging. However, for Selonia, the savior of the continent and the daughter of a duke, it was a breeze. Verandy got in touch with her first, eager to design her dress for the celebratory banquet. Sally thought, is it because she's a designer for the imperial family? The designs feel overly extravagant, the owner asked. Does this one not suit your taste either? Then how about this one? She flipped the pages, but Selonia favors nothing. Oh well, the owner said. Please wait here, my lady. Let me fetch my secret weapon. As she left, Sally thinks in her mind, maybe I should have just chosen one of the dresses she showed me. She grabbed a design. Suddenly Ella exclaimed. Oh my! Startled, Sally asked. Ella, what's the matter? Ella asked. Huh? When did he? Tan came there and said. Here you are. Later, Sally asked, puzzled. How did you know I was here? He replied. You told me this morning that you'd come here, she said. That wasn't an invitation for you to follow me. So you just decided to show up here? He asked. Why? Am I not allowed? She replied. Well, I guess it doesn't matter, but... Suddenly boutique owner came and said, My lady, I have a new design. She stopped in the middle, seeing Tan. Oh my, is this your ladyship's company? Sally replied. He is, but... Verandy observed him. He exudes a very unique aura. He doesn't look like a noble from the way he's dressed, but he seems strangely elegant. If he changed his clothes and tidied up his hair. Then a thought crossed her mind and she said, My goodness, where are my manners? My lady, would you like to try on this sample that hasn't been released yet? Sally replied. Sounds good. Ella then said to Tan, Mr. Beastly, please wait for a moment even if it's boring. Noble ladies normally take very long to get changed, he said. Call me Tan. Ella agreed. All right, Mr. Tan. After Seki gets ready, the owner said, My lady, please look in the mirror over here. Looking at her, he remembered the words. Is Lady Selonia really pretty? Asterisk. The boutique owner suggested Selonia. I think it would be better to show your shoulders. Like this? Suddenly Tan sprang up and turned. Ella asked, Mr. Tan, where are you going? He asked. You've known Selonia for a long time, right? Ella replied. Yes, but why? He asked. Is Selonia beautiful? She replied eagerly. Of course. Her ladyship is the most beautiful woman in the world. He asked then, does everyone's heart tingle when they look at her? She gets confused. Pardon? Suddenly the boutique owner called out. Sir, would you come in for a moment? He replied. All right. Ella looked at Tan and he was flushed. His cheeks were red. She thought, oh my, does Mr. Tan? While Ella went to find Tan, Sally asked Verandy, By the way, why are you looking for the gentleman I came with? She hesitated. My lady, actually. She showed Sally design of an outfit and explained to her. Sally replied, Aha, so you're saying there was an outfit you made that ended up being too big, and Tan is the only one who's tall enough to wear it, right? A sigh followed. Yes. Sally thinks in her mind. That figures. Besides, I'm sure there aren't many men wealthy enough to purchase an outfit made for the imperial house. But that's not what's important. If it's an outfit specially made for the crown prince, it would be the most extravagant outfit in the empire. If you're worried about the design, perhaps the gentleman could try it on first? The owner suggested. Oh, would that be possible? Sally asked. She replied. Of course. Sally thinks in her mind. I'm curious to see what kind of outfit it is, so maybe I'll have him try it on. Later, when Tan put on the outfit, the owner turned to Tan. Sir, would you take a look in the mirror over here? Tan stepped forward. The room was silent as everyone stared at him. He was looking fabulous. He stared at his reflection. Whoa! Mr. Tan, you look amazing! Ella gasped. Tan turned slightly. Amazing? Ella replied. Yes. He turned to Sally. What about you? She thought, looking at him. Given that it was made for the crown prince, I thought it wouldn't look good on Tan. But now that I see him like this, she spoke. Well, it looks alright. Alright? A sharp glare followed her words. Sally thinks in her mind, Ella had met Ian, Laeth, and even Mac Ryan, all acclaimed as the most handsome of the century. Yet, compared to them, she thought Tan looked even more handsome. I didn't think he was that good looking, It suits him well, as if the clothes were actually made for him. Verondi grinned, asking, "My lady, what would you like to do?" Seili replied, "Include that outfit in my bill as well." She turned to Ella. "Let's go home now, Ella." "Yes, my lady," she responded cheerfully. As they rose to leave, the tailor bowed. "Thank you, my lady." Just as they were about to exit, a voice called out, "Excuse me, is Madame Verondi available?" They turned to see the new arrival. It was Grace. Seeing Seili and others, she said, "Oh my, I didn't expect to meet you here," Grace said smoothly. "Are you here to order a dress?" Seili stiffened. Grace and Mac Ryan, two people she didn't want to see. "Did you pick out a nice dress?" Grace continued with a charming smile. "Well, you're so beautiful that you would look dazzling in anything," Seili asked with a serious face. "You must also be here to order a dress," Grace replied. "Yes. I'll soon have an occasion where I'll need to wear it." Seili narrowed her eyes. "Did she purposely come here just to tell me that? To show me that she's marrying Ian? Asterisk," she replied. "That's good. Madame Verondi is very skilled, so I'm sure she'll make you a suitable dress." Grace chuckled. "I'm aware of Madame Verondi's reputation. Speaking of which, Madame Verondi..." Before she could continue, a voice interrupted. "Pardon me, miss, but this boutique operates by reservation only. Not anyone can just enter, and I'm backed up with reservations at the moment, so please excuse me." The staff bowed politely, but the rejection was clear. Grace felt humiliated. She shouted, How dare you? Do you even know who I am?" "Grace," Mac Ryan said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Grace stopped and exhaled calmly. "I'm all right. Let's just go to another shop." Seili watched the exchange, barely holding back a sigh. What a sight to see! Glancing at Mac Ryan, she noticed his hesitance. Then, he turned to her. "Seili, why don't you ask Madame Verondi if she can make a dress for Grace?" Seili blinked. "What? Grace has always wanted to have her dress made here," Mac Ryan said earnestly. "It's not that hard to put in a word for her, is it? For old time's sake." Seili's breath caught. Has Mac Ryan lost his mind? The woman he liked wanted a dress made for the wedding she'd have with another man. It was bad enough that he was still following her around, but now he wanted Seili to help get Grace the dress she wanted. After telling her he wanted nothing to do with her anymore? Seki clenched her hands into fists. How dare he say for old time's sake? She mumbled to herself. Mac Ryan looked at her expectantly. "What did you say, Seili? Are you going to help us?" Seili's voice was cold. "I don't know why Miss Grace needs my help. Don't you always get what you want?" Seili stiffened. "Then go ahead and try again, like you always do." Grace's eyes widened. "How did she?" "Seili!" Mac Ryan shouted, his gaze sharp. "What's so hard about putting in a word for her?" Mac Ryan demanded. "It's not that difficult. Look, she said she didn't want to." Ten interrupted, stepping forward. Mac Ryan's eyes flicked. Who are you?" He flinched. "Can't you see I'm talking to Selonia? Get out of my way. Selonia, all you need to do is put in a good word for Grace, so why are you?" Suddenly Tan grabbed Mac Ryan and lifts him up with his right arm. "Ugh!" Mac Ryan gasped, his arm locked in an iron grip. "Tan!" Seili cried out. Mac Ryan's eyes blazed. "What the hell?" Tan asked sternly. "Do you wish to die?" Mac Ryan grits his teeth and his voice dropped to a deadly growl. "Don't trifle with me." A sudden burst of energy. Fwum. But it doesn't affect Tan. How did you?" Mac Ryan's eyes filled with shock. "Tan!" Seili called again, sharper this time. "Enough." Tan's eyes flicked to her for a moment, then, with a final shove, he let Mac Ryan go. Mac Ryan hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. "Ha ha!" He clutched his chest. "Do you even know who I am?" Suddenly a wave of blue energy surged. Mac Ryan's dragon power flared, the symbol of his holiness. "You asked for this," Seili cried out, her voice urgent. "Mac Ryan, pull yourself together!" Seili's voice cut through the tension. "Do you really want to use your powers on a civilian?" Mac Ryan jolted, his energy flickering. "Humph!" He lowered his hand, but his eyes narrowed. "Why is Selonia protecting that man?" He clenched his fists. "And what did she say? A civilian?" His thoughts raced. Without even lifting a finger, he caused the symbol of my holiness, my dragon energy, to completely subside. That man is no ordinary person, and this dark, powerful energy I've definitely felt it somewhere before. Seili spoke again, her voice colder. You should back off now. Don't cause harm to innocent people. She watched Mac Ryan carefully. It doesn't look like he's realized who Tan is yet. I'll have to separate these two before they show their true selves. Mac Ryan's shoulders tensed, but he finally turned away. Let's go, Grace. Grace nodded, casting a final look over her shoulder. Sure. As they walked away, Mac Ryan's voice lingered. I'll make sure to remember you. The soft chime of the door marked his exit, but Grace stopped for a moment. Her expression didn't change. I should go as well. See you again next time, but Sally called out. Wait, Miss Grace. So Grace again stopped. Sally said, Don't expect to be treated like a savior, just because you're with them. You'll only be disappointed if you do. Her tone grew pointed. If you have achievements of your own, I'm sure people will recognize you for it. It's a pity I'm unable to help you with your dress. Grace chuckled softly. Isn't that the same for you, Lady Selonia? Her eyes glinted. If it weren't for the Bessin family, you would be nothing. I find it a bit amusing to be receiving such advice from you. Sally's expression didn't waver. She said, stepping forward. That's right. I didn't choose the family I was born into. Her voice steadied, her gaze fierce. However, I can prove myself even without my family name. I have another name, Savior, that I earned through fair and square means. Grace flinched at first, then turned and walked away. Later, as they entered their home, a cheerful voice greeted them. My lady, I'll go upstairs first and draw a hot bath for you. You and Mr. Tan can take your time. The maid giggled and rushed ahead. Sally paused, then turned to Tan. Tan, there's something I'd like to know. He looked at her, his gaze calm. Why did you stand up for me? She asked, her voice quiet but curious. You're not even my real bodyguard. Tan's eyes darkened slightly. He was one of the saviors who betrayed you. Tan's voice dropped lower. A guy I used to know in the slums told me about the savior's story. He said everyone in the empire knew about it. Sally's heart skipped. She felt a flicker of unease. He startled me there. For a moment, I thought he had regained his memory since he mentioned the saviors. Tan's voice grew colder. Do you want me to get rid of him for you? Sally blinked, surprised. I'll do whatever you want me to do, Tan continued. She was reminded of his past remark. Should I kill him for you? Just tell me if that's what you want. I can bring you his head. Sally's eyes searched his face. He seems like he's changed, but also not. Then, she smiled softly. It's fine now. Things between them and me are already finished, she said simply. She resolved. And I may have changed quite a bit as well. Her voice lightened. Come on. Let's go inside. It's time for dinner. As she stepped forward, Tan froze suddenly, his body tense, his eyes narrowing towards something unseen. Sally paused. What's wrong? Tan's lips pressed in. Nothing. The wind rustled through the trees, but his eyes, sharp and guarded, lingered on the shadows beyond. The Benet Manor. Grace paced back and forth, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Her frustration simmered beneath a thin veil of composure. Why isn't he here? She thought, her voice a low mumble. Suddenly, with flashing light, a person appeared from thin air. He bowed. You called Miss Grace? Grace turned sharply. Gale, were you not told anything? Gale replied. I haven't received any orders. Grace's patience snapped. Still nothing? Are you even doing your job? The porcelain cup in her hand smashed on the floor, shards scattering. Her eyes burned with indignation. Must I continue to see that conceited woman while enduring such humiliation? Tell him I won't wait any longer right now. Yes, Miss Grace, Gale replied swiftly. He pulls out a paper from his robe and ripped it apart. As he did that, he vanished with a flash. Then Grace thinks in her mind, that woman, the more I think about her, the more annoyed I get. Why is she so proud when everything has been taken away from her? She remembered Selonia saying, I can prove myself even without my family name. She scowled. That damn savior title. If it wasn't for her background, she wouldn't even have been able to obtain such a title. After a few moments, while a maid was cleaning the mess of broken cup, her thoughts shifted. More importantly, who was that man next to her? His image lingered in her mind. He looked more handsome than Ian and stronger than Mac Ryan. She felt a spark of curiosity. It was enough to pique my interest. Suddenly, with a knock, a voice called, Miss Grace, Duke Cherville is here. Grace straightened abruptly. What? Now? What are you doing? Escort him here. Her irritation bubbled anew. This isn't the first time. He can't just keep showing up unannounced. He may be my fiancé, but he still needs to notify me in advance. What a rude and arrogant man. she snapped at her servants. What are you two doing? You hear me? Get ready to receive his grace. Why yes, Miss Grace. They stammered, scrambling to obey. Minutes later, Ian sat poised, a cup of tea in hand. He took a sip and said, I wanted to see you as soon as possible. But I kept receiving missing person reports, so I didn't have time. He set her cup down and added, I heard you ran into Selonia yesterday. Grace's expression cooled. It was nothing, really. His voice hardened. Whatever that woman said, don't mind her, Grace. She may be the daughter of Duke Bessin, but she can't mistreat my fiancé as she pleases. Grace smiled faintly, her voice measured. Of course, I'm well aware that the person the savior of the Empire loves is me. The tension lightened as Duke Cherville glanced around the room. By the way, your room looks different every time I visit. Grace's eyes brightened. Oh my! You noticed? She gestured delicately. I changed the curtains and bought some new decor items to freshen up the atmosphere. Do you like it? The Duke's eyes roamed the room. His response clipped. It's quite impressive, but his expression cooled slightly. It's my understanding that Baron Benet's finances aren't the best, he thought. All of this seems unnecessarily extravagant. His eyes narrowed. If we get married, the first thing I'll have to teach her is how to manage finances. Grace's voice cut through his thoughts. Would you like more tea? Without pause, he asked. How about we set a date soon, Grace? She froze slightly. By that you mean, for our wedding? His gaze locked on hers. Don't you want to get married as well? I'd like you to become my wife as soon as possible, so you can learn how to manage the household and spend time with my family. Grace's fingers tightened slightly around her cup. She replied, Your Grace, have another cup of tea. She poured gracefully. To me, every single moment I spend with you is precious. There's no need to rush. She smiled sweetly. Don't you like my Darjeeling tea? At the Bessin manor, a soft sigh escaped from Tan. Ha! Are you all right? Sally asked. Not yet, came the reply. Oh no. The voice grew worried. You must be in a lot of pain. Let me take a look at you. He turned his head softly. Sally asked. I heard you've been spending time reading with Ella these days. Which book did you read today? He replied. It was about a man and a woman overcoming their differences in status and falling in love. She felt confused. Ella. She recommended a romance novel to Tan? Tan's brow furrowed slightly. High status. How do humans obtain titles? She replied thoughtfully. If you make a big contribution on the battlefield, or have a big achievement like defeating the Demon Lord, His Majesty might consider bestowing you with a title. The voice softened. But the war ended long ago, and the Demon Lord is gone too, so that's not going to be an option. A pause, then a murmur from Tan. If the Demon Lord was still here, I would have killed him, Sally said inwardly. You are the Demon Lord. The moment shifted. By the way, Sally continued, tomorrow I have to attend Marquis Penroja's daughter's birthday banquet. I plan to leave early in the morning, so I won't be able to join you for breakfast. Tan's voice was immediate. I'll go with you. Sally gets surprised. Excuse me? Only invited guests can attend banquets held by nobles. Plus, you still lack a lot of common knowledge, Tan replied. By the way, do you know how old I am? Why do you speak to me so formally? The response came. It's just a habit. And you look older than me, he asked. How old are you? A moment of hesitation then. I'm 24 year. A sudden correction. No, I'm 21, she thought to herself. I almost said the wrong age. Suddenly she yawned thinking. I seem to get tired really early these days, but I eat and sleep enough. I wonder what the problem is, she then said. If you're feeling better now, could you please leave? He squeezed her hand and refused. No. My wound still hurts. A sudden squeeze on their arm. Squeeze, she asked. Really? Then she leaned on him and fell asleep. Every time she pressed closer, snuggling against him, the faint scent of her perfume tickled his nose. Tan paused, then, gently, he pulled her hand toward him, and then he kissed against her hand. For the first time, he didn't want this night to end. Hirschbruch's castle in the north. There was still no sign of change within the Demon Lord's castle. The wind howled, carrying with it an unsettling silence. I don't know what to make of this, muttered Archduke Ayus Hirschbruch, his eyes fixed on the distant fortress. Beside him stood Kelvin Finneger, captain of the House Hirschbruch's Order of Knights. Ayus questioned. Am I just sensing the lingering energy from the remaining monsters? Kelvin replied. But for that to be the case, the king's strength is growing each day. Ayus's expression hardened. That's right. It must be the energy of none other than our master the Demon Lord. But we can't be certain. The castle remains deserted, and more importantly, if our king were still alive, he would have sought us out by now. He paused, his voice lowering as he recalled the past. 3 months ago, when the human warriors stormed the castle, our king ordered us every demon to leave. We wanted to stay by his side, but he forced us to retreat. We never imagined it would be the last time we'd see him. Unlike monsters, we demons draw power from the Demon Lord himself. Our lives are bound to his existence, and what I felt shortly after leaving the castle was unmistakable. A flash of memory and agonizing post-complete extinction. He exhaled sharply. We escaped, scattering to human cities, hiding in plain sight. When the chance arose, we claimed human bodies useful vessels to survive. Yet even now, though I wear this human form, I can feel it. Our king's energy, once faint and fading, grows stronger with each passing day. There is no doubt. His return is near. The Archduke turned to his companion. The time has come, Jack. We go to the capital, the source of our king's power. Dinroha Manor's banquet hall. The grand hall shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, and the air buzzed with chatter and laughter. It's truly an honor to meet you, Lady Selonia. A soft voice piped up. Selonia turned to see a young girl, her cheeks flushed with excitement. And a happy 10th birthday to you, Lady Nina. What a lovely banquet this is. The girl's eyes sparkled. My lady, did you know? I'm very fond of the saviors, she gushed. Could you please chat with me a bit longer? Selonia smiled warmly. Why, of course, the girl added. Among them, you're the one I respect the most. Your story is my favorite. Oh my, how kind of you, Selonia replied, touched by the child's earnestness. Ninia's eyes widened with curiosity. Is the Demon Lord really handsome? Selonia paused, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. With a soft chuckle, she said, Before I answer that, I have something for you. She reached to her maid and showed a delicate pendant, the gem within glowing softly. She said, It's a pendant containing healing light, a small charm of healing light. I hope it will protect you when you need it most. Nina gasped, accepting the gift with reverence. Thank you so much, Lady Selonia. She hesitated, then asked shyly. By the way, who is that gentleman over there? He's been glaring at you for a while now. Selonia followed her gaze and her heart sank. Across the room, Tan stood, his dark eyes fixed solely on her. Gosh, he startled me, she thought, suppressing a sigh. Oh, him? He's my bodyguard, she answered with a forced smile. He always works too hard. Tan stood at a distance, his posture stiff and his gaze unwavering. He wasn't on the guest list for the Dinroha Manor's banquet, but with Selonia's father's permission, he had come as her bodyguard. Still, he couldn't shake the annoyance bubbling within him. Suddenly a lady approached him, introducing herself. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Thought I'm unaware of your name. I am Count Bland's daughter, Flower Bland. He tilts his head in question. And so, the young lady gets shocked. She turned and dashed away. He thinks in his mind, so, this was the important event she didn't want me tagging along for. Last night, Sally said. Tan, please stay quietly at home. Humph. Now, his arms crossed, he scowled at the crowd. Do humans really enjoy this kind of dull affair? How tiresome. A sudden voice interrupted his brooding. Mr. Tan, are you alone? What about Lady Selonia? Tan flicked his eyes toward Selonia, who was still with the young birthday girl. She's over there, Ella said, looking towards her. Oh, she must still be greeting the guests. Then let's wait together until she returns. Tan's expression barely softened, but he tilted his head curiously. Hey, how old do I look to you? Ella blinked, startled. Pardon, well, she studied him for a moment. You look older than 20. I'd say, around 25? Tan's lips quirked, amused. Do I? His mind drifted. Selonia said she's 21 years old. So, we're 4 years apart. A 4-year age gap. Tan's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. He recalled a line from the novel, a 4-year age gap between lovers is considered ideal. Then there's no need to think further. He then asked, How much longer is she going to take? Ella replied, It's because this is her ladyship's first banquet since her recovery, Mr. Tan. Everyone's just happy to see her, he thinks. I have no interest in human parties filled with ostentation, but if Selonia is there, even the most painfully extravagant decorations and lights seem beautiful. But his musings soured as his sharp senses flared an unfamiliar presence approached Selonia. he asked. Who's that guy? A young nobleman had stepped into Selonia's path, his expression one of thinly veiled arrogance. Tan's eyes darkened. Ella replied. She's being greeted by a young lord. Lady Selonia is a noble of high status, so… While talking she looked piqued towards Tan, noticing a sudden surge of energy. Tan was visibly angry at that young lord. Ella realized and quickly stopped Tan. She whispered to him, Mr. Tan, it's just a formal greeting among nobles. Until Lady Selonia returns, it would be best if you stayed still. Actually, you should really stay still. Then another nobleman approached Tan. The nobleman's voice carried across the hall. So we meet again, in a place like this. He paused, his lips curling into a smirk. We bumped into each other once at the Bessin Manor, didn't we? What was your name again? He chuckled. Ah, right. The Beast of the Night. His voice dripped with mockery. I recall you had a vulgar nickname like that. What brings you here? A place like this hardly suits someone of your standing. Tan's eyes flickered coldly. A sudden, clear voice broke the tension. We meet again, Mr. Tan. Tan's attention snapped to the side. Another guest had approached, her expression laced with curiosity. Though we only saw each other briefly, do you remember me? Ian chuckled, putting his hand on Grace's shoulder. Grace, attending events like this. But that doesn't change his background. There's no need for you to speak so respectfully to him, he scoffed with a smile. As there was no response, he pressed. Hey, did you not hear me? Or did the cat get your… He stopped in the middle, noticing a menacing gaze from Tan. His expression shifted. Huh, this can't be. This overpowering energy I feel from him. Ah, Cherville, here you are. Marquis Dinroja strode forward. Thank you for coming. I know how busy you are. Not at all, Ian replied smoothly. It's Lady Ninia's birthday, so it would only be right for me to attend, Marquis replied. Haha, how considerate of you. Grace chimed in, her tone measured. Thank you for your welcome, my lord. It really has been ages. She stopped and retracted her words. Since you hosted a fabulous banquet like this, she added. I'm Grace Benet, daughter of Baron Benet. Marquis chuckled, ignoring her. My daughter is really curious to know how the saviors are doing. He tapped on Ian's shoulder and said, She'll be very pleased to see you today. I see. Then I should personally give her my gift, Ian said smoothly. Marquis then said, Now, why don't we go over there for a moment? They started walking away, ignoring Grace completely. After a while, Celie said to herself, feeling relieved. Finally, I can take a breather, Ella said. My lady, please have a drink, Tan then asked, leaning closer. Where is he? Celie asked. Pardon? He asked. The one who kissed your hand. Where did he go? Celie repeated. My hand? Oh, that's considered a normal greeting in high society. It's good manners for a man to gently place his lips on a woman's knuckles, but in reality, they rarely really kiss your hand, Tan remarked, leaning further. But we don't greet each other like that. Are you saying it's only between nobles? She replied. It isn't compulsory if the other person doesn't ask for it. And not only nobles greet each other like that. Hearing that, he said, is that so? She studied him carefully. What's wrong this time? He's making me nervous. Chatter filled the air in the banquet hall. Grace was standing alone, observing. I was convinced Ian Cherville would be the center of attention at the banquet today. She looked towards Tan, but that man attracts a lot of attention even without doing anything. She smiled, wondering, who is he exactly? Where did he come from? She approached Celie. Greetings, my lady. We meet again. Are you enjoying the banquet? Celie asked. Do you have business with me, Miss Grace? I believe we already exchanged our greetings earlier. I see you're still cold to me. Grace fidgeted slightly. I understand that you dislike me, but… Celie cut her off. There must be some kind of misunderstanding, Grace asked. Pardon, Celie thinks in her mind. This is so tiring, she began. I'm only going to say this once. I'm not interested in you enough to dislike you. That's usually how people feel about strangers. I'm sure it's no different for everyone else here. You don't have to worry about me anymore. If there's anything that must be discussed, it won't be with you, but with Duke Cherville. Did you hear what she just said? Murmured a noblewoman. Another snickered. She's certainly correct. How can she act so confidently in front of Lady Selonia's? The remarks continued. What an incredibly rude woman. Grace was stunned, standing there facing humiliation. Celie then turned and started walking with Tan following her. She asked Tan, Is there anything you want to eat? He replied, Whatever you're having. Grace was watching her as she walked away. Suddenly another figure approached Grace. "Miss, he wishes to see you in the annex." So Grace followed him. Sally looked towards her walking and wondered, "Who's that?" Suddenly Marquis Dinroha started with a clink to his grail. "Now that the banquet is at its peak, we will be having a special event. I prepared a rare spectacle for our distinguished guests today," he announced. "I hope you'll accept my sincerity and gather in the garden." Everyone wondered. "A spectacle?" Sally thinks in her mind, "I've finished greeting the important people, so I should leave before Tan and Ian bump heads again." She instructed, "Ella, we'll leave early. Can you tell father I'll wait in the carriage?" She replied, "Yes, my lady," Ella said to Tan. "Mr. Tan, you must safely escort her ladyship while I'm gone," he agreed. "Oh, all right." They walked as the chatter and murmur continued in the garden. Observing from a distance, Sally thinks in her mind, "I don't see a theatrical troupe or band. I wonder what the rare spectacle Marquis Dinroha spoke about is." Tan suddenly stopped walking. She turned to him. "Tan? What's wrong?" Tan doesn't speak for a moment, then said, "This sound. Can't you hear it?" Sally replied, "What sound? I don't hear anything." "Tan, are you all right?" he replied. "I definitely hear it." Suddenly a scream was heard. Tan said, "Something's wailing." Ian also reached the garden looking for Grace. "Where did Grace go at a time like this?" he heard a voice. "Tan, are you all right? Look at me for a second." He saw Sally worried for Tan. He stopped, noticing their hands clasped. He twitched at the thought, "Selonia. Why is she looking at him that way? Don't tell me that ridiculous rumor is true. Few moments ago, my goodness, did you see him?" One noblewoman whispered. "I think I know what you mean. You're talking about that handsome, dark-haired man, right? Who is he?" Another noble questioned. "I've never seen a more good-looking man in the Empire." Eavesdropping to them, Ian thinks, "What? Why am I hiding?" The noblewoman continued, "From what I heard, he doesn't even tell you his name, let alone greet you." The other giggled. "That's what makes him even more attractive to me. I heard he's Lady Selonia's knight. His Grace has a lot of trust in him," Ian thought. "Duke Bessin trusts a bum like him? I don't believe it. Who knows where he came from?" The noblewoman continued, "Oh my, that's right. And I don't mean to sound rude, but don't they look so good together?" Ian froze. What did I just hear? Selonia and that bastard are already in that kind of relationship. Now he approached Sally and asked, "Is something wrong?" She guarded Tan and questioned, "Why do you care? Please continue on your way." Ian asked, "What are you doing?" "Ha! I just came because you looked like you were in an uncomfortable situation," he asked. "Isn't that man suspicious?" "Like I said, it's none of your boozy." Sally hesitated. "Actually, no. While I'm not pleased to see Ian, I've never seen Tan behave like this before." Ian observed her curiously and doesn't speak. Then Marquis Dinroha announced, standing in front of a block covered with red cloth, "Now, you've waited long enough." Everyone turned to him. "I'm certain you won't regret gathering here today." He nodded towards his servant, and the servant pulls the red cover from the cage. Marquis continued, "I present to you." Meanwhile a voice spoke in Tan's head, "Energy. I must gather energy. Once I can see, I'll immediately." Tan was wondering, who is saying that? It feels like a strange voice is messing with my head. Unknown things are flowing into my mind. Suddenly a flashback came. He saw a person cloaked saying, "Pitiful." And I had such high expectations. "Are you sure you can even cut off a single piece of my hair in this state?" Leif dropped his sword, visibly hurt. Tan wondered, is this a memory? Then a scream was heard. The Marquis Dinroha presented a monster caged with red blood eyes. "What is that?" a noble gasped. "A monster." Sally wondered, looking at the monster. "Marquis Dinroha, what are you doing in your backyard?" "Ha!" Dinroha chuckled. "As you can see, we're safe no matter how aggressive it gets. It's a specially made cage too strong for it to break out of." Sally thinks in her mind, it's safe. This monster called Garam, which is as powerful as it is big, was an extremely difficult opponent to defeat during the expedition. Without holy power, it's impossible to subdue it completely. She spoke. "Wait, Lord Dinroha." Ian stepped forward. "I'll handle it." He glanced towards her. "You just take care of that stunned fool." She quickly turned to Tan and thinks, "I'm worried, you pains in the butt." "Well, I'm sure Ian will be able to deal with the monster. I'll check out the situation after I send Tan back to the carriage." She then said, "Tan, I think you should go to the carriage." He was still dazed, unable to speak. Her heart sank, thinking, I didn't realize it before I saw the garum, but now I keep questioning myself. If the monster's energy has an effect on Tan, then could its existence awaken him? Ian went to Marquis de Roja. Marquis laughed. Oh ho, our savior is finally here. So, isn't it the same monster you saw during the expedition? Ian stands in front of the cage saying, Yes, I'm very familiar with garums. I'll keep watch just in case. He turned to his servant. You there, hand me your sword. The servant handed him the sword, then the Marquis announced, This sure is reassuring. We have Duke Cherville by our side, so please do not worry and take a close look. The nobles chattered. He's right. I think it should be safe since His Grace is present. I heard it's extremely difficult to catch a big monster like that. You really are amazing, my lord. Marquis smirked. Yes, I bet even the Emperor has never seen a monster this big. And with Ian Cherville here, news of House de Roja being protected by one of the saviors while owning a powerful monster will spread throughout all corners of the empire. The monster growled at the audience, his fangs producing karaoke sounds banging with the cage. Then Ella came to the garden and said, My lady, you were still here? I heard a sudden commotion, so I came outside. Ella, Selonia called. You're just in time. Go back to the carriage with Tan. Ella asked. Sorry. What about you, my lady? Sally said. I'll explain later. Take Tan with you and, now! A chilling cry rang through the air. The monster escaped. Everyone, stand behind me. Duke Cherville ordered. Guards, escort the guests out of here. The servant shouted. Yes, Your Grace. Ian thinks TSK. This is going to be annoying. Hey, over here, Ian shouted. There's something off about this garum. It doesn't feel right. The beast turned to him. The beast lunged forward, attacking the sword. It went after the sword. After their first clash, Ian thinks, was a garum's skin always this thick? His hand was trembling from the impact. Then the beast turned and started dashing towards Lady Nina. Sally shouted, Lady Nina! She attacks the beast with her healing light, and said, Quick, find safety! The beast whimpered in front of her and stopped. It was like the beast was trying to say something to her. She tried. This garum. Then Ian shouted, Selonia, why are you just standing there? Suddenly Tan guarded her and slashed the beast with a single attack. He pulled her close to him. She was taken aback for a moment. After that, Tan asked her, Are you alright? Oh, yes. She was dangling as Tan was holding her up. She said, Let me down, Tan. He dropped the sword and lifts her up further. He said, That's strange. Your face is flushed. Are you feeling unwell? She blushed and her heart raced. He added, Your heart's racing. She wasn't able to control and shouted, Well, I told you to put me down. After he put her down, she thinks, Truly, he's so unpredictable. Then a butler approached and bowed. Lady Selonia, are you alright? Thank you for saving Lady Nina. He was dignified. I am the butler of this house, Magnus. His lordship has accompanied her ladyship elsewhere, so I extend his thanks to you on his behalf. He turned to Tan. I'd also like to thank your knight, Sally said. Oh, this is Sir Tan, my bodyguard. The butler bowed and remarked, You possess exceptional combat skills, Sir Tan. Thank you once again. Tan nodded back. The other nobles also remarked, You're my savior. I was amazed at how you took down the monster with a single blow. Then Sally observed, Tan seems different from his usual self. In a way, he's normal. As the chatter continued, Ian was also standing there. He winced after hearing all of them praising Tan. Later, when Sally returns to her carriage, she recalled, Marquis de Roja. What was he thinking, displaying a monster like that? It's a relief there were no casualties, but things could have gotten really messy. And soon, a lot of people will know that Tan killed the monster. She sighed. I really would prefer it if Tan stayed out of the spotlight, but maybe I have no choice. Well, he did a good deed, so I guess that's what matters. Then Tan spoke earlier. The monster's thoughts crept into my head. She flinched. Pardon? Tan continued. It seems no one else, including you, could hear it. He asked, Why is that? Why am I different from other human beings? As the carriage was on her track, he continued. I want to be like you. Tell me everything you know, Selonia. The next day, Selonia was in her room reading the news articles. Who is the beast of the night? The hero who saved the people. After reading it, she thinks, I knew it. Someone has already written an article about Tan. Well, I expected this much. I don't think I need to worry about it for the time being. She places the newspaper on the table and stood up. She decided maybe I'll drop by Weeklander's store today. Last night, a letter purportedly from Weeklander arrived at the manor. It was a short message saying he'd found the books on the magic circle I had asked him about, and wanted me to pay him a visit. Maybe I'm mistaken, but there was something questionable about the letter. It was written in a way that only someone privy to the conversation between Ella, Weeklander, and myself could decipher its meaning. Plus, it felt like the sender and subjects were intentionally left ambiguous. Was there a particular reason for such thoroughness? Suddenly a knock interrupted her thought. She replied, "Oh, come in," Ella asked. "Did you read everything, my lady?" she replied. "Yes, I read all of the newspapers you brought me." "I don't think the stories about Tan will be an issue." She mentioned a certain part. Sally flinched. A large fire erupted in the Magic District's shopping area, resulting in injuries and casualties among the residents, as well as the destruction of several stores. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, the emperor called for Marquis Penroja. Marquis accepted while bowing in front of the emperor. "I've committed a grave sin, your majesty." The emperor Erexio said, "A grave sin, huh? Are you referring to turning a formidable monster into a spectacle? How bold of you. As no lives were lost, your punishment will end with just a fine." Marquis accepted. "Thank you, your majesty," the emperor asked. "So, who is the one you said took down the monster?" the Marquis replied. "I'm not exactly sure, but..." He caught the glimpse of Emperor's gaze and jolted. He continued, "He's currently staying at Duke Bessin's manor, and rumor has it he's known as the Beast of the Night." The emperor taps on his throne thinking. "I heard Lon Cherville was also present, but the man who killed the monster was the Beast of the Night, a man from the slums. I'd like to meet him sometime." Later Selonia went to Weeklander's shop, but everything was already ruined. "It's dangerous." Sally's heart sank at the thought of Mr. Weeklander. People were chattering. "I hear Mr. Weeklander never made it out," another said. "Do you think it's true that his carpet caught fire from an ember from the fireplace while he was asleep? Oh dear, what a horrific accident." Hearing that, Sally thinks, was the accident simply a coincidence? All of this happened right after the letter arrived at the manor, and I planned to go see Mr. Weeklander. Then someone approached her. "Are you Lady Selonia?" The person was cloaked. The guard with Sally stopped him. "Stand back and identify yourself," but Sally said. "It's all right, Eden." "Who are you?" After that they sat down to have tea. After he explained, Sally asked, "So you are Mr. Weeklander's apprentice?" The person replied, "Yes." Mr. Weeklander was a sage. Sally was surprised, thinking, he was a sage. The novel only briefly mentions sages. They are described as beings who can read people's minds, and even see the future using their deep insight. No wonder. He didn't seem like any ordinary character, Henrik said. "The reason I wanted to see your ladyship was to deliver the item my master entrusted to me," she asked. "Pardon," he continued. "He said you would come to visit the store today, so he wanted me to make sure I gave you this book on his behalf." He slides a book on table, presenting it to Sally. She gasped. "Wait, that means..." he explained. "Yes, it's as if he knew all along that all of this would happen." "She thinks I knew it. It wasn't just an ordinary accident." She asked then, if Mr. Weeklander predicted the accident, why didn't he avoid it by leaving the house? Henrik told. "My master always told me, everything must follow its natural course. If you attempt to alter things hastily, the present will descend into chaos," he said calmly. "I believe what my master saw. Of course, it's difficult for me to understand his intentions as of now, but I'm certain your ladyship must have also seen something." After she left the meeting, she thinks in her mind, what vision of the future, deemed immutable, did Weeklander see? She remembered both Henrik and Weeklander saying, "And please take care of yourself. Please make sure to take care of your health." She resolved, I can't just sit back and wait until someone gets hurt again. Whatever is to come in the future, I must stop it. "Baron Benet's manor," a maid asked the other. "By the way, are these really Darjeeling leaves?" the other replied. "Jamie, don't try to be clever and play tricks," the first said. "No, I really don't think these are Darjeeling leaves," other said. "We need to send these to Duke Cherville, Count Ford, and Sir Leaf by today." First asked, "Are the rumors about people being dragged to the basement true?" the other replied. Jamie! I advise you to keep that mouth shut. Make haste. We need to finish this before her ladyship comes. Later Sally analyzed the book that Wicklander sent. This is a personal record of information on the magic circle. This is definitely not something you can read in an ordinary book. Before artifacts were developed, sheepskin paper was usually used as a medium for magic. There were 3 cases where a person's name and the magic circle would be written together. Teleportation magic for moving between spaces, transmission magic for sending objects, and communication magic for correspondence. All 3 types of magic require either a destination or a recipient, so a location or a person's name has to be written below the magic circle. She concluded if so. The Jillian magic circle, which had Grace's name on it, and the meaningless information about Grace. Could this all be proof that Jillian serves Grace? Is that even possible? Even if he's the deputy chief of the Finesse Guild, as long as the guild is being operated by the Bessin family, there's a limit to what Jillian can do. She wondered, clenching her fists. How did they hide this secret from father? Just like the male leads were charmed by Grace, could it be that? She sprung up thinking, he'll soon be here for his periodical report, so I must prepare myself. I'll set a trap to catch Jillian. That way, I can see for myself if my guess is correct. Then she went to Tan's room and knocked the door. Tan, are you there? She thought about who she could trust in this manner, and ironically, Tan was the first that came to her mind. She thought, not that I have anything in particular to discuss with him, but, she said, standing at the door. I'm coming in. She went in. The room was empty and silent. She glanced around. Where has he gone? I didn't hear anything about him going outside at this hour. She halted, looking at the bathroom door. She wondered, what if the pain has come back? She reached the doorknob, asking, Tan, are you here? As she swings it, Tan quickly grabs her arm and pulls her inside. He closed the door while slamming her. She was taken aback. What are you? Tan said. Be quiet. Someone's coming. Then 2 maids entered the room. One was saying to other, You're sure Mr. Beastly isn't in, right? The other said. I saw him leaving through the main gate this morning. Let's quickly place them here and leave. What if he comes back? One said. Good. Make haste. Then she asked Tan. How did you know someone was going to come? He told. The past few days they've acted like they were watching me. Today, I pretended to leave the manor and then secretly returned to my room. After all, they have no idea I'm able to teleport. Hearing that, Sally thinks he made a pretty decent plan. Ooh, but what did they do inside the room while Tan was away? She looked around and lifts the blankets, but there was nothing. She looked at the drawer and opened it. There was jewelry inside the drawer. She asked, What are these doing here? Most of them are mine. Who would do such a thing? She thought, was it to make it look like the person using this room stole them? But there's no way Tan would covet such valuables. What would be the benefit of doing such a thing? She remembered Rubwis in her mind. Oh, if it's someone who's trying to come between me and Tan and wants him to leave this manor. She closed the drawer and said, It looks like someone tried to kick you out of the manor by framing you. Don't worry. I'll take care of it, Tan asked. You'll take care of it? Wouldn't it be better for you if I got kicked out sooner? She turned abruptly. What? But that would never happen, but she gasped. What I meant was, she quickly turned her head, flustered, and said, Come on. Let's go have dinner first. We can think together about what we should do, Tan grinned. Sure, let's do that. Later a maid said to another, My goodness. Are you saying there's a thief inside the manor? The other said. Yes, I'm telling you. Then Sally came there and asked, What's going on? The maids bowed. My lady? The maid here was just saying her precious jewelry was missing. Then Rubwis also approached. There you are, my lady, he asked. What's all the commotion about? Looking at him, she thinks, Rubwis. He showed up just as if he was waiting for this moment. She said, This maid is saying her belongings have gone missing. Rubwis looked towards Tan and smirked. Oh no. It sounds like a petty thief has entered the manor. Meanwhile, Grace gets dressed up and asked Ian, Your Grace, what do you think? Do they suit me? He doesn't respond, so she pressed again. Your Grace? Your Grace. Finally he turned to her. Ah, yes. They look good on you. Then again he turned his head, thinking, After meeting Grace, I haven't really thought about Selonia. But ever since I saw her with that man, those thoughts have kept stirring in my head. He's no good for someone like Selonia. I should get her back. Looking at him busy in thoughts, Grace thinks, Ian is definitely acting strange. He used to get all flustered and cling to me just at the sight of me sulking. What happened? Is it because I keep avoiding the issue of marriage? He's being really annoying. She then smiled and said, Ian, should I come to your house tomorrow? He asked. Why, all of a sudden, she replied. I'd like to keep the previous two dukes company. After all, I'll be seeing them often in the future, he agreed. Very well. Hearing that, Grace thinks in her mind, that's it? So this is your game plan, huh? Do you think I'll start clinging to you? I'll just keep this man in my hands like a trophy. After all, there is a new man in the picture now. Back to the Bessin Manor, Duke Galloway also reached to the place of the commotion and asked, What's the matter, Selonia? She turned to him. Father, I think a thief broke into the manor, her father asked. A thief, What makes you think that? Rubwis stepped forward. Your Grace, my lady, the servants of this place are well accustomed to your generous consideration and welfare. He glanced towards Tan and continued, however, there is one person who isn't. It's too late to thoroughly search all the rooms, so I suggest checking the room of our guest, who's the most plausible culprit, first. He pointed towards Tan. In response, Tan chuckled. Looking at him, Rubwis said, I shall help with the search. He thinks in his mind, that arrogant bastard. Let's see how much longer you can hold your composure. Then they searched Tan's room. A servant said, I think I found something. Hearing that, Rubwis grinned. He shouted, I knew it. I heard he used to hang around in vulgar places. It seems like no one can escape their background. Were you tempted when you saw all those valuables? How foolish of you to lay a finger on her ladyship's belongings. He stepped to the place of the finding and continued, I was correct, wasn't I? You should punish him for all the jewels he stole and kick him out. He turned to the drawer as he was saying and was shocked to see a single ornament there. In shock, he said, What's this? This can't be it. I told them to put everything inside. Duke Galloway was beside him, he repeated. Told them to put everything inside? He asked with suspicion. What's the matter, Sir Rubwis? Go on with what you were about to say. Rubwis' heart sank. Why, Your Grace, there seems to have been a mistake. Then Sally stepped up, observing the ornament. This is the brooch I gave our guest, she asked. Captain, how did you know it was mine? I'm curious how you're aware of the jewelry I never lost, Rubwis retracted. I am being framed. It's clear this man set this up out of spite toward me. He turned to Tan, blaming him. Go on, tell the truth. Did you think you could get away with doing such a thing in His Grace's manor? Tan responded. I have no idea what you're saying. Rubwis grits his teeth and said, How dare you use me to try and win over her ladyship? He tried to punch Tan, saying, Do you think I wouldn't know what you're up to? But Tan quickly apprehended him. Then the Duke said, I think I've heard enough. As of this moment, I'm removing Rubwis Sid from the position of Captain of the Order of Knights. Rubwis requested mercy. Why, Your Grace, Sally said, and find the servants who he bought off. I'll personally take care of them, Rubwis pleads to Sally. My lady, this is unfair. Why are you only generous toward him? She replied SDRNOY. Let me set a few things straight. I haven't been generous to anyone. I did offer you another chance out of respect for your loyalty, but remember, you're the one who landed yourself in this predicament. After that, as Selonia and Tan were walking back, he said, My lady, it went just like you said, she replied. I know. Things worked out well, he asked. What will you do now? She replied. I'm not sure. It's soon midnight, so should we meet again later? He said. Okay, Sally instructed again. Don't forget to make sure no one sees you, he replied. I won't. At night, Sally was sleeping while leaning on Tan. Tan observed, lately, Selonia's been falling asleep while holding my hand. It's good being the only one to see this side of her, but I don't want her to be tired. He recalled her saying, Are you alright? Then how about Tan? What? But that would never happen. He brushed her hair and kissed it, thinking, I wonder what I mean to you. Rubwis and two maids that helped him were kicked out of the manor. The maids followed him. One of them said, "Sir Rubenus, wait a minute, what are you going to do? You got us kicked out as well. We just did what you asked us. This isn't what you promised," he shouted in anger. "You didn't do what I asked?" "That's why she figured it out," the maid requested. "Well, at least give us the gold you promised. You're the one behind all of this, so the least you could do is take responsibility." He grabbed her by the collar and shouted, "Shut up, get lost, before I cut you open." Then the other maid stopped her. "Oh, let's go, Jane," as the maids turned their own way. Rubwis grits his teeth thinking, how dare they? They don't know their place. I may be in this mess now, but I'm inherently different from those lowly beings. I'm the one who was there for Lady Selonia all those years. If given the chance, I should be the first in line, he said aloud. That dirty bastard. Suddenly someone called from behind. "Why are you still here?" Rubwis flinched and quickly turned. "Who's there?" Ten appeared right behind him saying. "That's not an answer." Rubwis felt chills. He quickly turned and asked, "You? What are you doing here?" He reached to his sword smiling. "No, this is good. You just walked right into your own doom. I'll behead you here and now. Then Lady Selonia will finally be mine." He swings his sword but Tan disappeared. Rubwis shouted, "Where did you go? What kind of cheap trick is this?" Then he heard a crackling sound. He wondered, "What is this noise? And this smoke?" He saw ground around him was ablaze. He shouted, "Fire!" and slumped to the ground. Then Tan appeared and said, "Yes. These flames will burn your body to a crisp." Rubwis jolted saying, "Why you bastard?" He looked at Tan thinking, why is his presence so overwhelming? "I can't move a muscle," he asked. You're hiding something from Lady Selonia, aren't you?" "Who are you?" Tan smirked. "Oh ho, I'd like to ask that question as well. Care to guess?" He glanced at Rubwis and asked, "Who do you think I am?" The best day, Sally visited the slums with Tan. He thinks in her mind, my celebration hosted at the palace is just 2 days away now. Meanwhile, I've been searching the empire high and low for a new information guild, and I finally found one just before the celebration. In slums she was greeted by Maxwell. "My greatest pleasure to meet you, Lady Selonia, savior of the empire. You are just as beautiful as Tan described you to be, my lady," Tan remarked. "Stop your nonsense and just get to it," Sally replied. "The pleasure is mine, Maxwell." "I see that you are a very capable man," Maxwell said. "And what a heart of gold, the Secretive Information Guild, renowned as the best in the underworld storm. It's hard to even reach them without a connection." Luckily, Tan's friend Maxwell was able to help. What she needs now is not the name value of a guild, but their ability to take care of things quickly and quietly. Sally tapped on Tan's shoulder and said, "Let's go." "You will escort me today, won't you?" he replied. "Escort you? Sure. I will make sure no one lays a finger on," Sally interrupted him. Yes. "Thank you, sir." Then Maxwell guided them and showed them the guild's building. He said, "Please wait here for a moment." "My lady," she replied. "All right." She observed the insides. The building's in decent shape, and it doesn't seem to get much traffic. "If I hadn't already known there was a guild here, I would have walked right past it," she asked. "Have you been here before, Tan?" he replied. "No, this is my first time. I only looked into it because I wanted to help you," she said thoughtfully. "I see." Then Tan noticed something and brushed her hair. "You have something here," she replied. "Oh, thank you, Tan." Then someone interjected. "Welcome." A person approached from stairs and said, "I apologize for the lackluster reception. I didn't expect such a distinguished guest to visit in person. Please, I hope you won't take it the wrong way. Pleasure to make your acquaintance, Lady Selonia Bessin." She looked at him thinking, this is the head of Storm? When Sally went with the guild head to discuss matter, Maxwell asked Tan, "So, Tan, tell me how it happened. When did you fall in love with Lady Selonia?" Tan acted oblivious. "Everyone loves her," Maxwell said. "That's different." "Oh well, you've always been incredibly dense. The love I'm talking about is when you're worried about them when you're apart, feel happy when you're together, sad when you say goodbye, and want to touch them if they're next to you." Hearing that, Tan's mind raced. "So the things I feel when I see Selonia are because I love her?" Meanwhile, the guild head asked Sally, "Is the room to your liking?" she observed. "Yes, you have a great antique collection," he then said. "Allow me to introduce myself, Lady Selonia. Daniel Jackson, at your service, head of Storm Daniel Jackson," she replied. "Thank you for your warm welcome. My apologies for reaching out so abruptly," he grinned, saying. "Please, it is no trouble. Everyone knows that the finest guild belongs to House Bessin. If Lady Selonia has chosen to visit Storm, it must mean you have business to handle discreetly, away from the eyes of your family." "I'm highly intrigued," she replied. "Well, if you say so, I'll get right to the point. I need someone outside of my family to help me. I'm looking for someone capable enough to make their own decisions when needed. Someone who is smart and skilled," she asked while taking a sip. "What do you say? Would you be able to help me?" Meanwhile, at the temple, a passerby looked at the huge bell ringing and said, It must be today," his companion asked. "What is?" he replied. "The ritual of the Holy Knights. They always ring that bell when it's finished. I believe they fast for 2 whole weeks," his companion replied. "Well, never mind that. Let's get going." After Leif came outside, he thinks, "The long holy ritual has come to an end. Perhaps it's because I met Miss Grace right before it started, but this particular ritual felt longer than others." He was holding the basket. "She'd be upset if I didn't try the dessert she gave me." Suddenly a person shouted, "Please help!" The carriage wheel. A big wooden wheel was rolling fast towards 2 young priests. Someone shouted, "Hey, watch out!" But Leif quickly intervened and stopped the wheel and is shattered. The person apologized. "My apologies, sir." The wheel suddenly fell off and Leif replied, "It's all right. Just be more careful from now on." Then one of the young priests said, "This smells amazing." They were holding on to the bag Leif was carrying. It contains cake that Grace baked for Leif. During the commotion, the Leif accidentally dropped the bag. The young priest said to other, "Emily, that's not yours." She presented it to Leif. "Sir Leif, I'm sorry. This box is broken." Leif looked at it and smiled. "Thankfully, the cake inside is fine. My friend gave it to me." "Could the 2 of you take it off my hands?" the young priest replied. "Wow, can we really eat it?" he replied. "Of course. I had a big lunch today." They bowed. "Thank you. You're the best, Sir Leif." He thinks in his mind, young priests are constantly hungry. Miss Grace would understand. Speaking of, I was trying to go see Miss Grace again just now. He stopped walking and thinks, what has gotten into me? I do mean the pledge I made for Miss Grace, but it also tarnished the first pledge I made for Lady Selonia. That has weighed heavily on my mind this entire time, and I repented over and over during the holy ritual. Of course, that didn't do anything to erase the wounds that I left on Lady Selonia. He thinks about Lady Selonia. He recalled her saying, "Leif, these are bulrush flowers. They will help with the pain." He was shocked to remember this. This memory. Suddenly Grace reached there and rushed to him. She asked, "Sir Leif, are you all right? What's wrong?" He was breathing heavily. Then after a moment he regained senses and calmed down a little. He said, "Oh, Lady Selonia." Looking at Grace, Grace's heart sank hearing that. She quickly opened the basket she was carrying. "Here, have this. I made them with medicinal herbs, so it should help with your headache." But Leif stopped her by grabbing her hand. "And Miss Grace?" "Wait, but he ate the cake." Then Grace asked, "Sir Leif, are you all right? How are you feeling?" "You must have had a sudden headache," he replied. "Yes, I'm fine, but what are you doing here, Miss Grace?" She smiled, saying, "Oh, me? I was worried that the cake I made for you would have gone bad. I did make them so they would last long, but have you tried it?" he replied. "Oh, I gave it to some priests I ran into earlier. Please understand. They needed it more than I did." She was stunned for a moment, then she turned. "We'll talk on our way back," Leif replied. "Of course, Miss Grace." As they were walking, Grace glanced around to look for that priest's. After a while Sally came back. Seeing her, Tan asked, "All done?" Tan stood still, watching with a sullen expression. She asked, "Yes." "Did I keep you waiting for too long?" he replied. "I was just about to head upstairs." Hearing that, she said, You've been very patient. My talk with the chief went well. I'll tell you about it on our way back in the carriage. All right, Tan responded. She thinks in her mind. The Information Guild storm. I don't know how capable they are, but one thing is certain, they are much more reliable to me than Finesse right now. Even Daniel, the chief, he was observing me but still treated me with respect. I wouldn't have given him the job if I thought I was being looked down on. As they were walking, suddenly, a frantic voice interrupted them. Emily! Emily, get up, Maxwell asked. Hey! What seems to be the problem? A girl replied. My younger sister, she suddenly collapsed. The girl's breaths came in short gasps. A glance at her robes revealed her status priestess robes. Sally thinks in her mind. These children should be in the temple. What are they doing here? I'm not sure what her symptoms are, but I should be able to ease her pain with my healing power, she said. Maxwell, could you take us somewhere more private? He replied. Oh, of course. Follow me. The door creaked open as they entered. Maxwell said, pointing. Lay her down over here. The girl coughed violently. Sally asked the young priestess. What was the last thing she had to eat? The girl replied. Some bread. She collapsed as soon as she took a bite. I don't know anything else, Sally repeated. Some bread? The girl replied. Yes, I have it here. The bread rustled in the bag as it was pulled out. A foul scent wafted through the air. Sally jolted from the foul smell. Tan said. It reeks. It really does. Sally agreed, but Maxwell said. What are you two talking about? It just smells like tasty bread, Sally replied. Huh! But it smells terrible, he said. Well, I only smell sugar and butter. It's a really delicious smell, the young priestess also agreed. It just smells delicious to me as well, Sally thinks in her mind. How is it that this blood-curdling stench is only noticed by me and Tan? The young priestess, who was coughing, suddenly stands up, her sister asked. Emily! Are you all right? Emily was dazed, unable to respond. Sally asked. Sister Emily, can you hear me? Please tell me if you're in pain. I'm going. She murmured. Miss Grace. I need to go see Miss Grace. The urgency in her voice made everyone tense. Her sister asked. Emily, what are you talking about? Who's that? Emily replied. She's my favorite person. Then Sally squeezed her hand and said, Sister Emily, please focus on my voice and think. Who gave you this bread? A holy knight. Her voice drifted off with a blank expression. Gave it to me right before I left the temple. A tense silence followed. Sally thinks. There's no guarantee that this holy knight is who I suspect it to be, but, she asked. Then, by any chance, did that holy knight have blue hair? Emily blinked. Oh, yes, he did. How did you? Hearing that, Sally felt a sudden thump. Leif wouldn't have eaten anything because of the holy ritual. A child who looks for Grace right after eating some bread she got from Leif. If Grace is somehow related to this as well. No way. Meanwhile, a person named Gail appeared in front of Grace. An urgent conversation took place. Grace asked. Gail. How did it go? He replied. I couldn't find any priest showing abnormal symptoms. She asked. Did you look carefully? He replied. I checked everyone in the temple multiple times, but I could not find the box or a child who was showing symptoms. She throws a flower pot in anger, shouting. Then where the hell did they disappear to? Why did Leif have to give it away to some child? Like an idiot. She walked on the shattered paces. Look again until you find them, and, if that thing finds its way here, just dispose of it. A bow followed. Yes, Mrs. Then Gail ripped apart a piece of paper and vanished. Grace plopped to the chair thinking. Calm down. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. Sally thinks about all the things that had happened before. About Leif's pledge. I'm going to make an eternal pledge to Miss Grace Benet, Macrian's heart. About the heart that I gave you before. I'd like it back. Her engagement. I'd like you to break off our engagement as soon as possible. She thinks in her mind, since you cannot force someone to be with you forever, I just thought. What if they had changed their minds? What if their minds were being manipulated? What if everything that happened wasn't of their own free will? She asked Emily. Sister Emily, have you ever met Miss Grace? No, but I need to go see her. Her voice trembled. I'm going. I need to hurry up and see Miss Grace. A hand reached out. Please wait a minute. Listen to me, Sister Emily. Her dazed expression surprised Sally. Now that I think about it, just now, Emily looked different when I held her hand. A soft glow shimmered between them. Perhaps my healing power works on her, she said. Oh. Sister Emily, take deep breaths. I'm dizzy, she murmured weakly. Sally pressed. Stay with me, please. Fatigue weighed down on Sally, she thought. It's been a while since I've used so much power. During the expedition, I healed up to 3 men with no problem, but this. A moment passed before Emily blinked. Oh, is it over? Sally said. Yes, you seem better now. How are you feeling? Emily said. I'm not dizzy anymore, Sally asked. Do you still wish to see Miss Grace? Emily replied, confused. Sorry? Who is that? A subtle shift in expression, Sally said. Oh, it's nothing, but inwardly, a thought clenched like a fist. Grace, what have you done? After that, she said farewell to the 2 sisters and Maxwell and asked them to keep what happened between them. She also replaced the bread she took with another tasty snack. She resolved, to think something like this happened to a young priestess. Maybe I should investigate the temple as well. Asterisk, a sigh followed. Why, do I have so much work on my hands? Tan asked. Why do you look so worn out? She replied. Oh, do I look worn out? I do feel more tired than usual these days. A moment of silence. He pulled her close, patting her. She was surprised. Tan, he said. You can lean on me if you'd like. She smiled. Then, I'll take a short nap. When they reached back to Bessin Manor, Tan carried Sally inside. Seeing him, Ella said, Oh, my lady, Mr. Tan, did something happen? He replied. No, I think she just passed out from being so tired. Then a person approached. Please hand her over to me. I shall tend to Lady Selonia from here. Tan's gaze hardened as he watched Galloway's aide, Raymond, step forward. A slight twitch. Then a cold, clipped response. Get lost, Raymond said. This is a direct order from His Grace. A faint crackle of tension sparked in the air. Ella said, Mr. Tan, I will be next to Lady Selonia the whole time. Do not worry. But as Selonia's warmth faded from his arms, something inside him twisted. What is this feeling? Should I just kill that man and take Selonia back? No. If I did that, she would never smile at me again. Selonia loves and cares for weak humans. Then it started raining, and Tan stands there alone. After he reported, Sally said, I see there's still no new information about Miss Grace, he replied. Yes, there's nothing out of the ordinary. I don't think she is someone you need to concern yourself with, my lady, she replied. Is that so? He asked. I heard that you were ill, my lady. Are you feeling better? She replied. Oh, I think I was just tired. I'm doing much better after a good night's sleep. After falling asleep in the carriage, she woke up the next morning to the sound of birds chirping. She felt bad that she couldn't tend to Tan because she was sleeping. Now she had a mission to accomplish. She thinks in her mind. Ella should be here soon. A knock at the door. My lady, it's Ella. Please excuse me, Sally asked, standing up. Ella? What is it? I have a guest. Ella came and said. My apologies, but you specifically asked me to inform you of this, my lady. I received word that the book you were looking for is available. It's at Blorence, the store at the end of the Magic District. Jillian flinched as he heard that. Sally glanced at him, and then smiled. She said, Jillian, I have an important matter to address. Could you show yourself out? He replied. Of course, my lady. Please call for me again soon. As the door closed behind them, she turned to Ella. Good. You did well, Ella, she giggled. Hee, it was quite entertaining. A small smirk played at her lips. This is just the beginning, Jillian. I've set the trap. Now, all that's left is to wait for the catch. A few months ago, at the expedition, when they reached near the demon castle, Leif said, We're almost at the demon lord's castle. The terrain is definitely getting more rugged as we near it, Ian said. Let us call it a day. Sally healed Macryan, so he asked. Sally, how are you feeling? She replied. The dragon's heart is helping me heal faster, and I'm not as tired these days, she replied with a grin. I have you to thank, Mac. Again, thank you so much, Macrian's expression softened. I was always worried about you, but now, nothing will be able to harm you. He hesitated for a moment. Well, except for dark magic, she asked. Dark magic? He explained. Holy dragons are the antithesis of dark magic. Even with the dragon's heart, you can't be protected from it. But do not fear. I haven't seen anyone use such ancient magic in these times. A warm breeze passed between them. And I'll be protecting you for the rest of your life. Sally remembered dark magic. It was created long ago by a small number of people who worshipped evil. It is said that hundreds of years ago, it was deemed heretical by the emperor, and has been eradicated ever since. I thought the Central Library, the biggest library in the empire, would have more information on dark magic. But all documents related to ancient magic are prohibited by law. I didn't expect reading those books would be forbidden. If all related material and academic books are banned, then ancient magic is as good as dead now, just as Macrian said. She wondered then how in the world is Grace using dark magic? Magic that can control the minds of the male leads, the young priestess, and even affect Macrian, a dragon. Yet it doesn't work on Tan, the demon lord, and its effects can be counteracted with my healing powers. Every clue is pointing me toward dark magic, but I don't have enough evidence. If only there were a way to undeniably prove it all. Would it be better if there were a clear boundary when it came to people's feelings? If they were truly manipulated into betraying me, should I consider their actions to be false? And if they didn't mean it, does that make my broken heart false as well? If everyone in this world is merely playing a role in a story, how can I be certain that my feelings are my own and not just a part of the character I'd become? She felt tired thinking about all of this. My head's killing me, suddenly Tan asked. Are you in pain? A sharp jolt brought her back to reality. She thinks, oh, I got so caught up in my reading, even though Tan was with me. She turned to him. Tan, why didn't you say something? You must have been bored, he replied. No, time just flew by. I was watching you the whole time. His words made her heart skip. She stood up. Then shall we go? Ella must be waiting, he replied. Sure. Meanwhile at another place, Jack asked. Tom, can you feel it? Tom replied. Yes, it grows stronger as we approach the capital. This powerful and dominant energy. His voice was steady, unwavering. It must be our king, Tom disguised as Ayuz Hirschbrook, Archduke of the North, Jack said. I knew he didn't vanish back then. A clenched fist. A determined gaze. Jack disguised Kelvin Finneger, captain of House Hirschbrook's Order of Knights. Our king must have bided his time, conserving his energy, just like us. We have to find him as soon as possible, Tom said. Yes, he will be waiting for us. Soon, the demon lord will completely resurrect. Sally was inside a carriage with Tan. A flicker of thought crossed her mind. I hope Julian does his job well, as he always does. Tan's gaze lingered. He squeezed her hand, so she asked, What's wrong, Tan? Are you in pain? He didn't answer right away. So she thinks, I couldn't hold his hand last night because I fell asleep. His fingers tightened around mine. No. I just wanted to hold your hand, she asked. Pardon? She felt her face heat up. Ella's wide-eyed stare made it worse. She freaks out. Ack. Ella's giving us weird looks. Suddenly the carriage stopped. Oh my. Ella covered her mouth, suppressing a smile. I'll go out and see what's going on, my lady. The carriage must have stopped because of something. She hurried away. Then Sally said, Tan, you can't just grab my hand like this out in public. Why not? He asked. Is it because of my status? She gets surprised. What? He said. If I get a title like other humans, can I hold your hand? Even if it's in public? She stared at him surprised. She thinks, I've seen this look on him before, when he asked me who he was. This look that seems to say that he desires something intensely. She pulled away slightly. Excuse me, I should go out and see what's going on. With that, she opened the carriage door.